Ladies and gentlemen, we are here for part 2. You could even call this the New World Edition of my conversation with a good brother. It was an honor and a privilege to have my dog on the first time, but not due to the greatness that he just finished experiencing, not just within the best-selling manga in history, but also in a few other series as well, we decided it was about time to do a part 2 of the AJ Alexander / King Recon collab. But my boy, glad to have you back on the channel. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Thanks so much for having me again. I loved doing the first one, which is why I actually reached out for this one. I'm just delighted to be here again and talk about all sorts of amazing stuff, because we both experienced a lot of stuff and we have a lot of thoughts on all of it, so I can't wait.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's exactly why I was so excited about it, because I'll tell you, man, as just starting us off, the moment I saw your tweet for Metal Gear Solid, yeah. I had the biggest smile on my face, man, because I love that franchise so much, and obviously you're already experiencing so many of my favorites. But when I saw that one, I was like, yo, let's go. So I'm going to assume you're going to wait for the collection, right? For that to drop?
Yes. So on Twitch right now, I'm streaming. I'm going through the Yakuza series, and I'm just finishing my third game now. Then I'm going to do maybe another game, and then that releases at the time of recording in about 2 months.
Yep.
And it's just convenient for it once it goes over to the ports to just start a blind playthrough of it, because I've somehow never played a minute of Metal Gear Solid, despite how critically acclaimed, widely loved it is. So I've been really excited for it, and seeing your reaction made me even more excited, because I actually didn't. I don't think I knew that about you until you said that. So that's awesome,
dude. Metal Gear. So on the old channel, back whenever we were just getting started off with stuff. My old intro was the classic Metal Gear theme, and I had that for around 3 years, because on the old channel I used to cover so much Metal Gear and Final Fantasy in particular, but especially Metal Gear. Like, I had so many videos, and there was even people that came over from the old channel to this one expecting those same Metal Gear things, and I was like, man, I'm so sad they're gone.
Oh.
And I would love to make some more one day, but man, that's a series that has a really special place in my heart. It has my favorite character ever, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing your thoughts on those. But man, on stuff that you're currently experiencing, dude, talk to me about Yakuza, bro. How's that journey going right now?
Man, I'm adoring it. So I'm just about to finish Kiwami 2. I think I have one stream left of Kiwami 2, maybe 2, but I'm near the end of it. So I've finished almost 3 games. It's already given me some of my favorite characters in the medium. Yakuza 0 is just like the closest thing to perfection a video game story, or a story in general, can get to. It's insane how well presented, well directed, all the character work. Like, from the first couple of scenes, I could dissect like little character expressions and the way that they were animated and their body language to like understand them. And that isn't me tooting my own horn. It's just how good the direction was to convey these characters, and like it just somehow carried forward those little things to the fullest extent. And just the story hits on every level. It's raw. It's shonen as hell, but it's also very poetic and profound in a really beautiful way. It's insane. Yakuza 0 is one of my favorite games ever. Kiwami was really fun. Kiwami 2 has been really good as well, so I can't wait to continue with the series.
Man, dude. Like, that was one that I was really sad that I wasn't able to catch a few of them, because, especially for Yakuza 0, Yakuza 1 has a special place in my heart, because, the PS2 one, because that was the first one I ever played, and so playing Kiwami was like kind of like a Final Fantasy VII to remake situation, where it just felt crazy to see the how things are at this point. And like I'd gotten into Yakuza after Yakuza 0 came out, but I wanted to start like in release order for some reason. And so whenever I was going through it, Zero was actually one of the last ones because I played it in release order, similar to how I experienced Monogatari in release order. So like I didn't experience Kizu for a really long time, and it was the same thing with Zero, where starting off with Yakuza 0 might have been like such an incredible experience, but even playing it where I did, it's still one of my favorite games ever because I'm someone who really appreciates prequels, especially after having the context from everything that happens after. So when I got to see the origins of all this stuff, it elevated everything. And actually, on that same line of thought, how did you feel about the way they executed the dual POV of Majima and Kiryu? Because that's so difficult to pull off in any medium, but in the video game medium in particular, whenever you have two characters like that, you need to distinguish them in some way and keep it so enticing to where when you finish one storyline, you don't want it to end. And then when the other starts and it keeps going, oh no, I want to stay here. And then it ends like, oh no, I don't want to go to the other one. Then you go to the other one, it's like, oh no, this is just as good. So how did you feel about the incredible switching back and forth between those two stories in Yakuza 0? Because that was one of my favorite parts about that game.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite things. Like, it helps that Majima and Kiryu are both fantastic in such different ways, but I miss it, to be honest. Like, that's one of the things I miss that isn't really in Kiwami and Kiwami 2. Well, Kiwami 2 has the Majima Saga stuff, but that's a bit different. No, I love that because they tackle such different sort of tones and different stories, which keeps things fresh and variable. But exactly like you said, every time they go to the next to the other character, you're like, I was like screaming at my screen. I'm like, I want more of Majima. But then we go to Kiryu, and he's doing some amazing stuff with Nishiki, or like, there's always something amazing around the corner. Every chapter's great. So it's like an initial, oh man, and then you realize, oh well, there's more peak, a different peak,
right?
And then
exactly.
And then that chapter ends, and then you want to stay with that character. So like, it was done perfectly. And the one thing I wanted was, I'm like, I want these two stories to intertwine in some way. Otherwise, like, it would have. That's just that was my one last wish with it, and they did. Yeah. What they do with the plot, the reveals with that is insane. So it was done pretty much perfectly.
Yeah, man, it's one of those stories I feel like is universal, where even if you were to take that out of the video game medium, that you could write a book on that, make an animated series on that, a live action series,
yeah,
and it would work. It's just, it has the universal element to it. It's so good. One last thing on Yakuza, on the side quests. I remember the first time I was going through them, because for years, as a Gintama heavy channel for so long, people would always tell me Yakuza's like the Gintama game, and I didn't really get it until I did my first side quest, and I saw how silly some of those side quests can be, the same way with the actual story, and how incredibly just heart-wrenching and emotional some of those side quests can be too. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on the side quests that you've experienced so far in the 3 games.
Yeah, I've had people tell me the exact same thing, that it's the Gintama video games, and I totally get it. Like, I think the main plot is a bit different if you're considering there's a pretty consistent through line for the main plot in Yakuza and in Gintama, I guess. In Gintama, it's a bit more nebulous, but you can kind of get which arcs are like the main plot if you had to choose.
Right.
They're a bit different there, but I think overall the style is so similar. The duality, right? What I love about both series is that duality plays into the characterization of, for instance, Gentoki, and the difference between the life he led and the light that he continuously strives for, and the life he wants to lead now with his current family, his newer family, and that exact same, like with the lightheartedness and silliness versus the darkness, that exact same things are there in Yakuza, with the sort of darkness of the Yakuza life, or Sotenbori for Majima, and then like they just go and do a silly sub story with Mr. Libido, or like they do karaoke and they're singing,
Yeah.
they're just being silly and singing, and you really just feel like this is a reprieve for them. They need this. They need to let loose and be silly. Otherwise, like the stuff they deal with, they would never be able to like live properly. So and then that duality sheds light on their characterization and kind of shows who they really are at heart, because there's two sides, or more than two, but there are multiple sides to every person, and that's a more lighthearted but just as important part, and in both series.
Yeah, no, very, very well said. That's exactly what connects the two series. It's that incredible duality, and I guess just to finish off on the Yakuza thing, I'm very, very excited to see your thoughts on the other games. Are you gonna keep going through the series all the way through? Until you catch up.
Yeah, I plan to. I might take a little break from streaming them. Like I won't do every one after another. I might take a break like around 3 or 4 to start Metal Gear. But I eventually I'm going to play them all, and pretty quickly. Like there are going to be breaks, but I don't see the train stopping anytime soon.
We love to see it. We love to see it. So there's another series that you're currently going through on Twitch, which is another personal favorite of mine, and I have this one coming in as a question from my boy Radman. Shout out to Fiji. It says, this isn't a question, but you need to chop it up about that Naruto greatness with him, brother. Right now you're going through Naruto. I just to let the audience know what chapter you're currently on Naruto.
I just finished 342, so I just finished the Akatsuki suppression mission arc.
Which is, for those who don't know chapter numbers, it is that incredible Shikamaru greatness.
Yes.
That it's so your quick thoughts on that, or not quick. You could take as long as you want, but like your thoughts on Naruto so far, and that arc you just finished experiencing.
Yeah, I've adored it. I've loved it so much. I think the last time we did the last one time we did one of these, I was either just starting or about to start, or I'm not sure. But it's insane how quickly it sunk its claws into me, and how quickly I got hooked. And like for reference, it's become a joke on my channel, because every time I say, okay, we're doing one more chapter, I do 10 more. Like I do 25 chapters a stream or something now. It's insane.
That's awesome.
I love it. There's such a beautiful spirit to it. The way in which Kishimoto sort of coalesces all these themes and pays things off in these beautifully poetic ways. A lot of just a quick glance of like some rain falling, a quick look of someone's expression, and then it all coalesces in some final scene that brings it all together. For example, at the end of the arc I just did with Asuma's sacrifice, I didn't even think for a second I would care for Asuma that much, given him in the earlier parts of the series. He was fine, but I didn't really. I'd be lying if I said I thought about him a lot. And then they just pull this, and he just gets elevated so much in just one arc. And the nature of the advice he gave Shikamaru about the king that's needed to protect, and how that coalesces, it being the children, them being the future, and how that coalesces with Kurenai being pregnant with his child, and Shikamaru taking the responsibility to care after. It's unbelievable how it comes together. And I really, every time I think, I'm like, okay, I can't love this series more. It just surprises me again. I'm not even halfway done, and it's already such a top favorite. And it reminds me of a lot of, obviously, shonen can be very derivative, but it reminds me a lot of another of my favorite stories, Haikyuu. There is so much Naruto in Haikyuu. And I see a lot of dynamics from Hunter x Hunter in Naruto as well.
Definitely.
I see a bit of like Inoue in Naruto a little bit. And there's other ones.
I'd put Evangelion in there as well.
Oh yeah,
there's a bit of Ava in
yeah,
there
for
too,
sure. They go so deep into character psychology. The dynamics are amazing. I already have top favorite characters on there, top favorite dynamics. And even
Oh, let me know some of them, man.
okay, yeah. Well, Naruto Sasuke's number one. It's got to be at least at this point in the series. And they're both already top favorite characters of mine. I actually have a list that it's a little outdated, but I can just take a glance on it because I did this on stream. Naruto and Gaara, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, so
amazing. And Itachi's been introduced and he's been pretty prominent, but I just get the feeling that we haven't seen them meet. We've seen his point of view, or like kind of his point of view, but I feel like Kishimoto's holding back a little bit and not telling us everything so far. I think there's more to the story, so I don't think I've seen the meat of Itachi yet, but he's already one of my favorite characters, and his dynamic with Sasuke is one of my favorites. Kakashi with the trio in general.
Yeah, so good.
Kakashi Gaiden was an amazing arc. And honestly, I don't know if she has like a top 5 dynamic with anyone, but I love Sakura's interactions with like anyone. Like with Naruto, people I see people criticizing her attitude towards Sasuke or like her in general. For me, I've never bought into that. I think she's one of the best characters. I think she's amazing. So she has some great ones. Rock Lee and Guy is one of them as well.
Legendary.
And those are just a few off the top of my head. There's also, this is going way back, but I still look back fondly on Zabuza and Haku from the first arc.
Oh man.
So yeah, there's tons. I could go on and on. It's just so full of amazing dynamics. And one that's actually more prominent now is Shikamaru and Asuma, and Shikamaru and like Naruto. Those are both great ones as well.
Yeah, no, those are a lot of great picks, especially where you are right now. In your manga journey, and I know with Naruto in particular, because so many people started off with Naruto, I'm sure there's a lot of people who, especially with part 1, went through the anime. Do you have you experienced any of the anime like on stream or anything? Any episodes?
Yes.
Okay.
We had one movie day where we watched 5 episodes. One at the end of Land of Wave. I think one during the Chunin exams. There was one that was a filler one that was it was like a comedy one. It was episode 101, which...
Oh, yeah, that one's iconic.
Yeah, I loved it. Some people were disappointed that we didn't get a more serious one, but I was really glad we got that, because it offered some really awesome, again, that duality.
Right.
But the last one was the end of Sasuke Retrieval, Naruto versus Sasuke.
Oof.
I mean,
yeah.
Iconic. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite anime episodes ever. It was just incredible. There are no words to describe how good that was.
Mm-hmm. And in my childhood, those 2 episodes, at 133 and 134, at the end of the Sasuke Retrieval arc, were some of my most rewatched ever, man. Like, to this day, I still pull them up with the Linkin Park AMVs or just as episodes by themselves and watch them. It's they're truly special, man. And I feel like with Naruto in particular, like I said, there's so many people that still hold that series and deep in their hearts, filled with so many great memories. So to see someone catching up to the series and appreciate it for the incredible work that it is, I'm so happy for people like myself that are massive fans that I get to see you go through this journey. One more thing on Naruto, if you have like any like arc or 2 that stood out to you so far, do you have like a favorite?
My favorite would have to be Sasuke Retrieval.
Okay.
But Chunin exams were amazing too. They might be my second favorite. Kakashi Gaiden, I was really impressed at how much was done in just, like, what is it, 6 chapters. And the Kazekage Retrieval for Gaara after the time skip. I really love that one. I thought that Kishimoto might have taken the time for like a slow, gradual build-up arc sort of thing. Nope, right out of the gate. Every time I think the pacing's going to slow down, it doesn't, and it's never tiring. It's always great. But yeah, those are probably my top 4 at the moment. But every single arc I've read, there hasn't been a significant dip at all. They've all been at least very good.
Right. The one of the reasons why I almost said to wait is because a saga that's incoming for you is one where I was first starting my manga journey, and I had never really experienced manga weekly up until that point, and so that experience forever, like, it set the standard for at least me and my like weekly manga reading experience. And so I'm super excited for you to experience what's to come. There's a lot of greatness in the series in all ways, shapes, and forms, but the content that you've already experienced has been so good. So I'm glad I was able to have you on at least to talk about this. And the next time, I don't know how far you'll be. I mean, if you covered 300 chapters since the last time we talked, I think by the time you catch up to One Piece, we might be talking about both One Piece and Naruto in their entirety. But I think by the time you catch up,
I think we will. I actually think that I might finish Naruto before I catch up to One Piece, like at the current rate. Just because I do so many in a stream, and One Piece. Some people automatically go, oh, he reads a bunch more Naruto chapters than One Piece. He must be like way more into Naruto, and that's not the case. It's just that One Piece chapters are dense. Like there is so much there to take in, and not that Naruto chapters aren't substantial, but they flow by a lot quicker. So because of that, unless the style changes, I can see myself finishing at the same time as catching up, or even before.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because like I remember whenever I was covering 4 series in particular, the big 3 and Hunter x Hunter, and I just remembered I would get some comments like that too, of like, man, why are your Bleach and Naruto videos so short compared to Hunter x Hunter and One Piece? And I was like, bro, it takes me longer to read like 2 pages of Hunter x Hunter than it does for me to read the entire chapter of Bleach. There's a lot of stuff that's there, man, and like the quality is exactly the same for all 4, but like you said, it takes a while to process. So there's a lot in put into those One Piece chapters, man. Like it takes me like an hour sometimes to go through it. So I trust me, I get it when it comes to how dense those chapters can be. So. Now, I appreciate you for talking about that. Obviously, like I said, these, when it comes to all 3, at least on my channel, we absolutely adore them. If you have any plans for Bleach in the future, if you would like to let the audience know, and by audience I mean me and Fiji.
Bleach is literally taking Naruto's slot once I finish it.
Dude, okay? So what you're telling me is, when I get you on, I'm hoping that you're like 30% through Bleach, completed with Naruto, and done with One Piece.
Maybe. I read the first 20 chapters. What I did was I read the first 20 chapters of both Naruto and Bleach, and then from there decided which one to pursue first. So I read the first 20 of Bleach, and man, it feels like it's right up my alley. So I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about.
For sure, yeah. Like I remember that VOD in particular. That was a favorite where I was like, "Let's go! Yeah. It's finally happening." Yep. So that's awesome, man. So, one last one before we go over into the One Piece stuff. Top Hat Geo came in with an interesting question, where he asked, "Would love you guys to discuss if you have any hobbies outside of this stuff," and I guess we can include some of this stuff as well. Thank you for both for being such positive forces in the community. Thank you for being incredibly kind. But yeah, man, if you would like to discuss any hobbies that you have, obviously we've already discussed a few. Just one quick thing. I know we're both United fans, so I know we're both heavily into the football side of things. Right. So it's going to be a sweaty season. It's not off to the best start.
Nope.
But yeah, man, go ahead, man. Talk to me about your hobbies.
It's outside of sports. It's a lot of what you'd assume. Like I do play games on stream, but I always just for personal enjoyment and keeping things like different types of games or whatever. I definitely like to play stuff just on my own off stream, just the big screen TV and just me. So gaming is a huge hobby. It's not just something I stream as well. It's probably my favorite medium. So I've usually got some sort of game on, regardless of what I'm doing in terms of content that I'm playing in the background, which will, I promise, eventually soon be Trails.
Let's go!
Not yet, but eventually, I promise.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So yeah, I love video games, but that's probably something you'd be able to guess. Obviously, all sorts of media, television shows, but also in terms of sport, I played football/soccer basically my entire life. I coached a lot, and I don't anymore, but I catch as much as I can. And yes, I'm a United fan, and hopefully by the time this goes up, we got a couple more wins under our belt.
Yes,
hopefully,
please.
A couple less injuries,
Hopefully.
A couple more signings. We'll see.
Please, please.
So that's a huge hobby of mine. I also, in the past, I don't know, the year before they won the NBA, got into the Raptors. So I'm a huge Raptors fan, but I love the NBA in general. And I watch some NFL as well. So a lot of sports, in addition to like video games and that sort of thing. That's pretty much the extent of it now, and just hanging out with friends here and there.
For sure. Real quick, your football team. Do you have one?
I don't. I'm completely neutral for football. You are. Oh, you're the Eagles, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm completely neutral.
Yeah.
I just realized that the NFL is a sport, or like is a league that I enjoy more. I just didn't really have much of a connection to any team enough to support them, and I just enjoy it more as a neutral.
For sure, no, I can most certainly respect that, and because I've been an NBA fan my whole life, but it's more so that I've been like a fan of players. Obviously, I've had my teams, like because I live so close to the Heat that I've always supported them. I've always loved the 76ers as well. So like I'll definitely support my teams. But there's like certain players, like for example, I obviously love LeBron. There's other players, Kobe whenever he was still playing, like God rest his soul. I was always behind the players, and so it was kind of like the same way that you go with football, where it was neutral. I still had my teams that I supported, but I like to watch the game just because I love the game as much as I did, not necessarily to support my favorite team.
Yeah.
Whereas the other two are sweat fests.
Yeah.
Like when Sunday or Saturday comes around and the Eagles or United are playing, I'm sweating.
Yep.
I'm sweating the
in
whole
12
day.
or a little over 12 hours, we'll be sweating.
Yep, that's right. That's right. It's going to be a crazy morning tomorrow morning, man. Hopefully, like you said, we'll have another win, man. Because look, I was telling Laz about this. He's a fellow United fan as well. Before the season started, I saw, because they came to the U.S. and I saw a few games on TV, and I was like, if this is a hint of what's to come, I'm terrified.
Yeah, it was not great. And sometimes preseason is like totally not an indicator of the season. So I was like, whatever. Because there's times where teams play really well in preseason and they're just awful, or vice versa. But no, they've carried that into the season, and they need to wake up really quick.
Yeah, man. Hopefully we'll make the right adjustments, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, same thing on my end. Stories are my life. I think I heard you say that before, and it's the same thing over on my end. Like both writing and reading, watching anything. I can't go a day, no matter how busy it is, without experiencing peak in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter if it's a novel, manga, a comic, a movie. Everything, man. I adore it as long as it's greatness. It's just a part of who I am, and that goes into multiple different mediums. But just like you, video games have always been such a big thing for me. I'm currently in the middle of the Armored Core journey.
Oh yeah.
That just came out today. So that's a franchise. I call myself a fraudulent fan because I played them so sporadically whenever I was a kid, but I have those very fond memories of not just myself, but with my friends, where we would play like Armored Core 2 and 3 on the PS2, and like 4 on the PS3, and so it's like we have so many of these memories that now playing this one, and being able to get in contact with those very same people be like, "Yo, man, the new Armored Core is out," and reconnecting with those individuals. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's so awesome. I love video games so much. Like you said, it's right there as my favorite video game or my favorite storytelling medium too, because you can just not only can you do so much with it, but like I look at it, let's just say like Persona 3, right? That's we're about to get our reload very soon.
Yeah.
And like the trails and you've told me about the greatness of Final Fantasy 14. The one thing that all these have in common is their length and the amount of time that you have to not only spend with these characters, but where you have to make the decisions yourself. You have to do the things yourself. So like it's this combination of not only you experiencing the greatness as if you were there yourself, but it's also the community experience. It's also being with other individuals that are into the same thing, and it's just video games as a storytelling medium. We've already gotten some of the greatest stories ever from that medium, and I feel like it's still in its infancy. It's a medium that's going to continue to tell incredible stuff for as long as we're here, and I look forward to being a part of that until my last days. Because man, video games. They cook at the highest level, man. Yeah. When it comes to the storytelling thing.
Yes, super well said. I totally agree. I think it's in its infancy as well, and I think you can just look at the sheer variety of types of stories, not just the quality, but for every Final Fantasy 14, there's like an Armor Core, which I've done nothing with that series, maybe one day. But then there's like a Bloodborne or a I know people love. I mean, Metal Gear Solid. I don't even know what type of stories those are, but I'm going to soon. And then like a Xenoblade or what. There's so many different types of stories, and I think that just keeps evolving and evolving, and I think it'll continue to. And no, stories are right up there with the best. Video games are right up there with the best storytelling mediums, and I'm just so excited to see where it goes as well.
Yeah, man. And you know, we were talking about sports earlier, and I always tell people like more sports fans need to get into shonen battle manga.
Yes.
Like it's the same exact thing.
It really is.
It's whenever I was a kid, obviously massive wrestling fan, which is literally shonen battle manga as like a live action play. But with sports, watching a lot of those documentaries, supporting my favorite teams, when it gets intense and you're in a match, it's like you're experiencing Haikyuu or Hajime no Ippo, or even watching something like, or reading something like a Naruto or a One Piece, where it's like, man, these two are going at it, and you really want one of them to win.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
It is incredible, and you know why? At least a big part of why I think that is because it's another story.
Right.
Like the World Cup, the best World Cup final I've seen in my life this past year. The Mbappe Messi narrative, that was a story. Yes. And it was like a heavyweight bout, and they just exchanged blows the entire time. And it's like, is Messi gonna crown his career in this way, or is Mbappe just gonna steal it from under his nose? It was a story, and that's what a lot of this comes down to.
Right. It's like even the one that happened in '98, whenever they were building up to Ronaldo Nazario and Zinedine Zidane.
Yeah.
Whenever that was being built up as like the match of the century, and the stories on both sides. France trying to Brazil trying to repeat. And it was so crazy. Still to this day, they still make documentaries on that World Cup, the same way that I'm sure they're gonna make documentaries on the 2022 World Cup final as well. Because just like you, man, that entire World Cup was incredible, but that final was on a different level, man. That stuff was amazing.
I couldn't believe it was real.
Same. It was truly something special, and so. Yeah, man, so many great things to experience out there. But yeah, hobbies, very similar over on my end. Just a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and a lot of watching greatness and playing greatness. So, man, but shout out to sports, man. Truly, like we just talked about, if somebody, because I know there's a lot of sports fans that are over on my channel just based on the references we always make to it and stuff. The storytelling extravaganza that is sports every single time that we sit down to watch any of that stuff. That's the reason why stuff like ESPN, Fox, and any of these things exist, is to provide that story, provide that narrative to get us excited for the next matchup between these things, which is pretty much like you're in between chapters between like a major chapter. You know what I mean? So that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, man, no, that's that. I appreciate you for that question, Top Hat Geo. Now we're gonna get into the One Piece Wa. The last time that I spoke to my good brother AJ here, we talked up to. I know we covered a bit into Return to Sabaody and Fishman Island, but it was mainly from Marineford, from Romance Dawn to Marineford. And now we're going to be talking about the New World from chapter 517 to let the audience know where you're currently at.
Right 1 second. I think I'm 807, but let me wait for my anime list to load before I can clarify that. I just started the beginning of Zoe, so I finished Dressrosa and then a few chapters of Zoe. 1 second. Okay.
And my bad to the audience. I was thinking of the anime when I thought of 517. It's 598. That's the time skip chapter.
Okay. Yeah. And 807 is where I left off. I just read 807.
Okay. Sweet. Yeah. So from 598 to 807. I know last time we talked a little bit about Fishman Island, but you were about halfway through. I know you really, really enjoyed that arc. So talk to me, talk to the people about your experience with Fishman Island, because I know that that's an arc like Skypiea where it's hit or miss depending on the person, but when that arc hits, it really, really hits. And so just let me know your thoughts on Fishman Island, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very apt to compare it to Skypiea in so many ways, because in terms of that sort of hit or miss element, but also in terms of the style. I think it's very similar in a few themes, a few ways that it comes together. But I guess I'll get into that in a second. The long and short of it is, I think it was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it a lot. It is so unique within the scope of One Piece in terms of the themes, yet so consistent in what it's saying and so loyal to the spirit of the series, so that it doesn't feel jarring or like this isn't part of the same story. It's all cohesive, but it does. It's a detour in a sort of way that I'm so glad Oda took, because so many of these ideas are not only beautifully presented and reach this beautiful culmination, but enrich sort of past arcs, especially Arlong Park. Like, Arlong as a character was someone that I could have, like I mentioned as I was reading through it, that I could see him being elevated through context. Like, I felt like something was a little bit missing with him. And it turns out there was, because we have this entire context for who he was. And there's so many great little touches that say so much about so many things. Like, for example, Arlong Park as, like, architecturally being a reflection of Sabaody, right? Mm-hmm. And that in itself says so much. Those who are oppressed by something want to grasp that themselves and use it to oppress others, so that they think that so that it makes them feel more in control. They're not under the yoke. They are taking control of their own life and, dishing it out. So there's so much that is just from that one detail, that one similarity visually, and that's all there throughout the entire thing. It's just, and I know he's a somewhat controversial character, Hody Jones. I'm so glad that Oda wrote a character like him, because... Me too. Yeah, I had a feeling you would. I didn't know, but I had a feeling you would, because he's a character unlike anyone else in the story. And it was actually said to me, a criticism of him was that he just works in this arc, and like, you put him in any other arc, and he wouldn't work as an antagonist or a villain. And I said, to me, that's his strength. Like, a lot of what Hody Jones is about is that he is hardly a person. He is just a byproduct of this unbelievably oppressive, hateful, cyclical culture that has just essentially ensured that someone was brought up just full of hate, unable to let go of anything, and with these specific ideals in his mind. He's more like a force of nature, and that could come off as like overly functional and lacking humanity. But in this arc, that says so much that he is kind of lacking that heart and soul, because a person was literally created because of this hate, and that is what will continue to perpetuate through the generations if this is not stopped, which ties in beautifully with Otohime and her focus on the children and needing to make sure that they grow up looking forward and not holding on to this hate. And I'm just kind of latching on to little bits and ideas and characters, but as a whole, it was unbelievable to me the directions it went in. Fisher Tiger, one of my favorite characters, favorite backstory characters. Maybe like in the conversation for my favorite. I know Fiji had that question in the last podcast about my favorite one. I said it might be Fisher Tiger. It's between him and Noland. And
great choices.
Well, actually, I will amend that to a top 3 with Corazon, because I just did Dressrosa.
Yes, I was about to say. Yeah, I was about to ask.
I cannot. Okay, never mind. I think Corazon's number 1. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I really do.
But Fisher Tiger's amazing. I love King Neptune. I love Shirahoshi. I think she's great. Otohime, of course. It's just, and then it comes together with the blood transfusion at the end, transcending that hate with Jinbei and Luffy.
Good,
It's such a it's such a thematically focused arc, which is a lot of what Skypiea is to me as well.
Exactly.
And there's just the idea of leave the past behind. Like, we want this place to be destroyed. We want it to be torn up from the roots. And all these people sort of praying for Luffy to be successful reminded me a ton of all these people praying for Luffy and Skypiea. There's just tons of parallels, and I've been talking a long time about it, so I won't go much longer. But Fishman Island is actually the arc that made me theorize the most. I was in full blown theory mode for so many things, and I could let you know what they are if you want, because I could go on.
Yeah, please.
Okay, sure. So,
well, hold on, real quick before you go. Where because I wanted to double check. You're recording on your end, right? We're breaking the fourth wall here. You're recording.
I am recording.
Okay, dude. Whenever we got into the One Piece segment, I was like, wait a minute. Are we both recording? Please.
Yes.
let me make sure. No, go ahead, my brother. Cook on the One Piece greatness, man. I got scared for a second.
No worries. So there's this whole element of Charlie and her predictions saying that Luffy will destroy essentially Fishman Island, and it's kind of done as a bit of, because we know that Luffy, I don't think we're expected to believe that Luffy's going to turn dark or anything, but it's just like this wrinkle and like, what is going on there? What is actually happening? And then there's these little elements that sort of spring up as Robin goes on her own adventure, her video game side quest, and finds this poneglyph and learns about this Joy Boy guy from 800 years ago or whatever. And then you learn about something I love about Fishman Island is that I talked about this a lot in my video on it. Is that it is this place where at the bottom of the ocean, where the only place where, even if it's artificial, where sun beams through, you can see the glimpse of a sun. It's through a bunch of filters, but you can see it here. And what I love as a theme is how people can look at that light. You can look at this glimmer of a sun, and you can look at it as teasing, like cruel, because you might not want to give in to that hope, or like you think it's a futile hope, that you're going to be burned in the end. Or you can, in spite of the fear of pain, you can hold on to that hope no matter what. And that is what Shirahoshi is. That is what Otohime is. That is what the Straw Hats are and Luffy is. But Luffy in particular is that sun. And so I feel like... I remember one of the first things Shirahoshi did when she saw Luffy is like, have you seen the sun? She asked him about the sun, or like if you can see the sun. 10 years of captivity, and she has this hope regardless. So all the elements of the sun, Charlie's prediction, Luffy being able to hear the Sea Kings, and we know that Goldie Roger was the only other person we know of that could hear them, these Sea Kings, and the Ark, Noah, Noah being a promise from Joy Boy that was left unfulfilled. So you take all that, you take the idea that Luffy is going to apparently destroy Fishman Island, and Charlie going, I don't think, maybe my prediction was wrong. I don't think it was wrong. I think that Luffy is going to destroy Fishman Island, but the complexion of that destruction was all these people praying for him, leave the past behind. The past is full of hate and darkness, and we want to leave it behind, destroy it. So I think that there's so many foundations planted. Maybe it hasn't even happened, because maybe this is something longer term. I don't know. But for Luffy to be that savior, to destroy the current Fishman Island, to lead them to the sun, and to encapsulate the promise Joy Boy left unfulfilled with the Ark, and through the Ark lead them to the sun. And I don't know. The idea of Joy Boy has killed me. I've thought about it so much. If you even just thinking about the words, Luffy is a boy and he is full of joy. Just rudimentarily, you know. He is the sun. He is leading them to the sun. He has been since Skypiea. So I really think that Luffy and Fishman Island, I don't think their story's done. I think he's going to come back in some way and lead them to the sun. I think he's going to be some sort of reincarnation or this generation's embodiment of Joy Boy for Fishman Island, and I think he's going to do that. And that's just through all the little details we got throughout the arc. And again, if this could easily be something that you guys have not even seen up to the current point. This could be something even further down the line, chapter 1500 or something. I don't know, but
we're definitely getting there, folks. 1500,
definitely. But those are all the ideas that I had cooking, because I think Oda gives us so much substance for that. So that's the most I theorized throughout One Piece about a lot of things. One which I'm going to talk about, or like not nearly as long as this, but one which I definitely want to talk about with Dressrosa, and but Fishman Island was where I was in full like theory head mode. It had me big time cooking.
And I'm so glad you said that, because I do think that is 100% intentional. When that arc was going on, I remember whenever it finished, especially coming off of the high of like Marineford, Return to Sabaody, people were like, some individuals were like, "Man, this is the arc that Oda had been wanting to write for so long, that he's been building up for a long time." And I think, peeling behind the curtain and looking at it from a writer's point of view, sometimes the stuff that the writer's looking forward to writing may not be necessarily what their readers are like anticipating the most. And I'll give you a quick example of this, right? Like for Oda, I'm sure whenever he must have been salivating at the idea of finally getting to tell the story of Skypiea, and like in the long term, in comparison to some of the stuff surrounding it, like let's just say like Alabasta or Water 780's lobby, where stuff is really really popping off. Skypiea is just an adventure, but it's an adventure filled with so many things that Oda wanted to say, and I feel like Fishman Island is the same, where of course he's been building it up for all this time. He really wanted to get to it. Obviously, we've heard about it for a long time. But like you said, it's an arc that it's interwoven with so many different things that you just know. And not only do you know, you see it. Like throughout the course of the series, you see multiple different characters, how they have been affected by the events that directly connect to what we learn in this arc. And it's something that I really love about Fishman Island is like you said earlier, how everything's just the thematic, the way that everything is presented, similar to Skypiea, with it being such a theme heavy arc, is one of the reasons why I think Oda wanted to write it as much as he did, because it's one thing for you to build up something because you think it's going to be an awesome arc. It's another thing if you really have something you want to say, and you can just tell throughout the entirety of Fishman Island, this man had something to say in multiple different points, and I love that so much about this arc. I think that that final moment that you were talking about earlier with Jinbei and Luffy, the fans coined the term that is the path towards the sun moment, which is why I think it's so cool that you kept referring the sun there, because the anime uses that OST. That's why they refer to it as that moment. It's the soundtrack called the Path Towards the Sun, and I think it's such a great. Not only is it a fantastic scene for the arc, I think it's a great scene for like representing One Piece as a whole. And I have a lot of love for that scene, and so I'm so glad you brought that up. In regards to the theory stuff, like I said, I think that is intentional. Just looking back to the beginning of One Piece in regards to all the stuff that he brought up really early, like Baratier, Arlong Park, Logetown, where you're like, man, what in the world is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
and then you're like, you start getting the theories rolling, and the thinking cap gets going. So he's really good at that stuff. And starting off a brand new part of the story, I felt like it was the perfect placement for those questions. And so I'm so glad to hear you theorizing on a multitude of different things there. I wanted to ask you about two reveals that took place within Fishman Island, in particular at the very end of the arc. One of them is about Blackbeard. What did you think about hearing the news of what Blackbeard's been doing over the course of the last 2 years, and what he currently is at this point in time?
Yeah, that one was something that, with Blackbeard specifically, I thought a lot, because I mean the cast is gigantic, so there's so many characters.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about this last time. Like, there's so many characters that you're thinking of. Where are they 2 years later? Like, what could they be doing? There's a multitude of things that so many could be doing. Blackbeard's obviously such a huge player in the One Piece story.
Yeah.
So I often caught myself thinking about him without specifically thinking about what he could do.
Right.
Because the last time we see him,
I totally get that.
The last time we see him, he ends up sort of bastardizing Whitebeard's power and just claiming it for himself, being unique in that way with the multiple powers, and he just seems hell-bent on destruction and continuing to climb his way up. And so it seemed to me like it was an endless horizon for what he could be doing. And so when I hear that he's become an emperor, the stuff they've been doing, and I think we hear that from Jinbei, it wasn't something that I was surprised about, but it was something that I kind of had a big visible reaction, because it just kind of got dropped on us like that. I'm like, oh my goodness. So my initial reaction was just, okay, that makes tons of sense. And my second reaction was, that's super exciting, because we're getting built up to conflicts with the Straw Hats and the Emperors. That's later in Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, but it really feels like the foundation's being laid in Fishman Island, and you just get the feeling that he is kind of, not exactly, but kind of doing some maybe not final boss, but like penultimate boss things, and just to show how fearsome he'd become, his sort of his standing and what he'd accrued over the last couple of years. It's just really exciting for, I think, the future potential of the conflict between him and Luffy. That's the thing that excites me the most, but just his role in the story. So I think it's a great place to put him, and I haven't seen him. Well, I've seen tiny glimpses, tiny glimpses, but when we get there and when he's the focus once again, I can't imagine how hype it'll be.
And in a similar line of thought, there at the end of the arc, there was a lot of really cool reveals. It's a part in the story where obviously you come back for the first time in 2 years, and you're wondering how the world has changed. But one thing that was consistent from the Paradise side, the first half, the Grand Line side, is there's a certain character that we had heard about in the past, and we finally got the opportunity to see them in the end of this arc. So, what did you think about the introduction here of Big Mom at the end of Fishman Island?
Well, firstly, super striking design. I also I think it's very smart the way she's contrasted with Whitebeard. So Whitebeard, who allowed Fishman Island to be self-sufficient, just claimed it, but then just let them be free and do whatever. And her, who has this sort of veneer or falsity of freedom, like you can do what you want or whatever, as long as you're beholden to me and you give me these monthly payments of food or whatever it ends up being.
Right.
So that right there is a huge difference between the two, and I think tells you a lot about who Big Mom is and the sort of self-serving, pragmatic, I guess greedy nature of hers. I think it was great establishment for her as a character. I love the way that Luffy confronted it and just essentially said, "I'm gonna free Fishman Island. I'm gonna essentially gonna be Whitebeard 2.0 in that way." Which, man, just that sentence alone, considering their dynamic during Marineford. Anyway,
right.
But I love it does so many great things. It does that Oda thing where he plants seeds that are several arcs in advance because I have theories about when Big Mom's going to show up and who's going to be important for that. But it just lays the foundation and makes you really interested in who she is. And I think it was a really effective introduction. One of the most enticing antagonist introductions in the series so far. So yeah, I was really into it, and I theorized that Whole Cake Island is probably her arc, and I theorized that Sanji will be a part of that. But regardless of what happens, I'm very excited for her as well.
Dude, exciting stuff is inbound. There's some awesome stuff that I can't wait to talk about here, and actually a good segue into the next arc is another reveal that happened here at the end of this arc, which was the clash that took place in the Marines between Aokiji and Akainu, and that is going to segue us into Punk Hazard.
Right,
man. Now, Punk Hazard, obviously coming off of this arc, Oda does this thing that's really, really cool. It honestly paid homage to early One Piece, where we come off of Fishman Island, we're dealing with pirates, and so what are we going to deal with after that? In classic East Blue fashion, we're going to deal with some marine stuff, and I thought that was really, really cool. That was a really nice callback. I remember. Especially at the time, it was like, man, this is gonna be really classic One Piece vibe, especially with the characters that are reintroduced here. But I would love to hear your thoughts. I know Punk Hazard, it's not necessarily a divisive one, but it is one that it's either people really, really love it or they're just sort of neutral on it. So I want to know where you stand on the Punk Hazard greatness, my friend.
I tend to be somewhat in between. Like, it's not. I'm definitely not neutral on it. I thoroughly enjoyed my read through of it, but it's not like one of my favorite arcs. But I think I really appreciate it for what it does. Like, from my perspective, I had heard from a lot of people that this is their least favorite post time skip arc.
Right.
So,
right.
And I'm lucky in that doesn't affect my expectations, good or bad. I just hear it and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Let's see how it is. So it didn't affect me, but I was just like, huh, okay, well, let's see what this is all about. And you can kind of see why some people like it less, because in terms of like thematics, it isn't as heavy as some of the most, like we just did Fishman Island, one of the top 2 most theme-heavy arcs in my opinion in the whole series so far. To this, where that just really isn't the focus in my opinion. There isn't a great amount of hugely hugely heart-rending, emotional stuff. What it does is something I appreciate a lot that when writers do is it's a lot of mechanical functional work. It lays foundations like no tomorrow. It does so much heavy lifting for transitioning into Dressrosa and beyond, for moving a lot of the pieces in the ways they had to move to set up for one of the most epic arcs in the entire series. And the rest of...
Amen to that.
Yeah. So it does tons of heavy lifting. I have a lot of love for arcs that are able to do that. Well, also, let me just say, it does tons of heavy lifting. It's very mechanical, and you can see why it was necessary to be this sort of story in between all this. But what I love about it is that it does all that, and it's super entertaining. It's super fun.
Right.
It's also got tons of heavy material. The stuff with the kids and what Caesar does to them is horrific. It is one of the most disgusting things I've seen in the series. But it's got the reintroduction of Smoker and Law, two characters who, like,
yes.
if I could have selected two characters I want to see right now, they would have been right at the top of the list, and Oda brings them in right at the perfect time. So I was so glad about that. And I actually think this is a gigantic, defining arc for Tashigi. She's one of the stars of the arc for me. I loved her material, and so it does all this mechanical work. And it's got lots of great character work. It's got some really engaging fights and world building and just tons of rawness and just fan service in a good way. Like just seeing these characters all interact. That spread with Luffy, Smoker, and Law. I would never have thought I would have seen that, but I did, and it was amazing, and I loved it. The establishment for Doflamingo. So I have a huge love for arcs that do a lot of heavy lifting while being engaging and entertaining, and doing and flowing and just being engaging all the while. That's why I'm a big fan of Heaven's Arena from Hunter x Hunter. It's that same sort of thing.
It's a great analogy.
So yeah, I don't think Punk Hazard has a lot of ideas and a lot of elements that I feel don't come together as a self-contained story as much as something like Skypia or Fishman Island or Dressrosa or Marineford or something like that. And it's very foundational, and it lays a lot of groundwork and transitions a lot. But the ability for it to do all that and be engaging and tons of fun and very dark and heavy at the same time and variable throughout is, like, that is not an easy thing to do. So I have a lot of appreciation for it.
Man, I remember in our last discussion there was a few characters that you brought up, specifically those two, where you brought up actually three, where you brought up Smoker, Doflamingo, and Law, about characters you'd like to see post time skip, and I was like, in my head I was like, man, you got one more arc, bro. One more arc, man. Law, especially Law. Whenever he showed up, I was like, man, this is one guy I can't wait to learn more about, and he really shines in that arc. You were talking about really cool character moments and great character writing that takes place in this arc. One of my favorite, because Nami is one of my favorite characters, and
Based.
and her incredible. I mean, she was so good in Punk Hazard that, like, I remember when I was finished when I finished the arc. By the time that we were about to transition over to Dressrosa, I was like, man, she's truly something special. Oda, he knew what he was doing, placing her in charge of the situation with the children.
Yes, absolutely.
It was so well done. A lot of the characters were placed where they would shine best, but that one for me was a no-brainer, and I'm so glad that Oda took that route, because Nami shined so much, and a lot of characters did, but that one really sticks out in my mind of, like, yeah, you went in, and she had a great Fishman Island too, finally coming to terms with what took place within Arlong Park, and having that moment there with Jinbei.
Yes.
But going from that to this, I was like, okay, the Nami greatness just continues to cook, and so I really, really appreciated that. But at the end of this arc, we go on this really, really cool stretch of chapters. It's from, I want to say it's from chapter 687, I believe, is the chapter where Zoro fights Monet, up until right before the transition to Dressrosa, which is 699, 698, where there's just a lot of stuff popping off. Law has one of the coolest scenes in the series where he splits a mountain with Room. Yep. And it is insane, with one of the most epic speeches ever, man. It's so good. We have, of course, Luffy and Caesar, epic punch right there, and then, of course, the Grizzly Magnum. Don Quixote Doflamingo. I know that even before the Dressrosa stuff, I know that you were really high on Dofi. Whenever he showed up here at the end, did you expect that? Like, Dofi to... Because I know, obviously, we were building up to it. We were getting the Joker reveal of, like, holy flagnards. Because the entire time you're like, who in the world is Joker? And then you get the reveal. You see him, and you see, like, this very... just an expressive panel from Dofi where you're like, I've never seen this expression before. I'm kind of scared. And he's like, yo, I'm on the way. And so me as a One Piece fan, I'm like, okay, he's on the way, but that doesn't mean he's on the way, right? He's actually here. Like, he's on the way. And then, of course, out of nowhere, one of the characters I couldn't wait to see the most, Aokiji, shows up. So it's like, what were your thoughts on that incredible final stretch there at Punk Hazard?
I really it reminded me about of the end of the Long Ring Long Land or Foxy arc a little bit. Right. It reminds me a little bit of that stretch. But before I get into that, I just want to quickly mention the Nami stuff that you talked about. I'm glad you brought that up because I really liked her in this arc. I feel like she was channeling some maternal Belle Mare stuff.
100%.
And I also want to draw attention to Chopper because I think he's great. Nami and Chopper being put with the children, they're the two characters that were best situated to be there. And Chopper being able to, I think it was Punk Hazard or maybe it was Fishman Island, I don't remember, but where you realize that he's been able to harness his beast form or whatever it's called, and it's not this rampant beast that he can't control anymore. It's something that he can wield on his own and use for his benefit, for the benefit of the crew. And using it to protect these children. Like, I just love that. It's very kind of Jungian, harnessing the shadow,
right,
while also showing how much stronger he's gotten and just being very Chopper all the way. So I just wanted to quickly draw attention to totally agreeing with what you say about Nami, and I love Chopper as well. But yes, so oh man, I did not see the Joker twist coming. I gathered that some people did. Some people in my chat were saying that they guessed it might have been Doflamingo. I had no clue until the reveal. Like, I was totally, I was totally shocked. So I lost my mind. It just struck me as an arc that wouldn't involve, like, there are characters in the back of my mind that I'm like, okay, they're not going to be part of this. Like, I don't know, Shanks. Right. This didn't feel like a Shanks arc. It didn't feel like a Blackbeard arc. It didn't feel like a Dofi arc, and yet he's behind the whole damn thing.
He's behind the whole thing.
It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. So that, and then the leading into the finale that you talked about, and seeing the relationships he has with, like, Virgo and Monet, and the strange sort of affection they have for him, while also seeming resigned to be his tools almost. It just struck me as super interesting, and so I felt I had that in the back of my mind, and I'm like, okay, that'll be cooking in the background. We got that amazing spread of him man-spreading in Dressrosa on the talking to was he talking to Law? I think he might have been.
I believe so.
So it's great build-up, but I'm like, this is great stuff for when we see him maybe in the next arc. And he just comes, he just does it himself. Like, he's on his way. I couldn't believe it.
He's on his way.
It felt surreal. Like, now just talking about it, it feels surreal that Oda went there. That just felt like something that was going to be cooking for the next arc. But it showed, I think, a sort of desperation that I didn't really associate with him. Not necessarily through the way he talked just yet, but through his actions. Like, this is an amount of urgency I've never seen from him. He's always felt very laid back, very confident and easygoing, But here he was taking matters into his own hands, which showed that he was kind of rattled, which was really interesting to me. Uh, and coalescing that with his attitude towards Virgo and Monet, I was just like, this is different, and we're getting some really substantial stuff for him. And then so I think when he comes to confront Smoker, the Straw Hats have gone by that point. And I love from Smoker, he just doesn't tell them a thing. He doesn't tell them a thing, despite being kind of tsundere-esque and not joining in with the party and whatever. Like, we see you, we see what you want.
Right.
But so I love that he doesn't tell him. And then Aokiji comes in after all of the build-up for Akainu versus Aokiji and what happened with Punk Hazard. He's one of the most enigmatic characters in the series, where I find it's so hard to nail down what he's going to do in any given situation, or where his heart lies from one situation to another. And so I'm always hyped when I get any material for him, because we're peeling back the layers even more. But then him confronting Doflamingo, it felt totally surreal. And defending Smoker in that way, which I think says a lot as well. I don't know. It was just a great sort of... I think it set the stage really well for Doflamingo going into Dressrosa in his role, while also giving me just my morsel of Aokiji. And I kind of similar to Blackbeard, how I felt about Blackbeard. I'm like, I don't know what role this guy's going to have at all. I can guess for like Buggy or I don't know, like Sengoku or Shanks or something. But they're characters like this I just don't know, and I'm just delighted to have them on screen or in a chapter. So I was just kind of overcome with hype and just consuming it all. Just feed me more,
Right. With Kuzan, that was one of the reasons why whenever we started this conversation, I was like, "Yo, let's go ahead and grab the recording, because I have a few questions I want to ask you in regards to the stuff you just recently experienced on stream on a movie day. You just experienced Film Z, right? Just recently.
Yeah, I watched it. We're recording on a Friday. I saw it on Tuesday night.
Yeah. Okay. So, because you just recently experienced Film Z, that movie released in 2012. I believe we were celebrating the 15th anniversary of the series. It was flying high. Punk Hazard was going on at the time, and I'll never forget whenever the trailer was coming out for that movie, I couldn't believe that we were gonna have a character like that within a movie, and I think that movie only served to elevate my interest in his character. I guess before we go into Dressrosa, I guess this could be like an overall thing for your thoughts on the movies that you've seen so far. But just starting that off, how did that movie, coming off of that movie, did you feel any differently about a character like Aokiji, considering that he had a spotlight placed on him there that we normally don't get to see within the series?
Yeah, I feel differently about him, but also kind of the same at the same time, because I feel like we get such. I think a part of the reason why it's hard for me to nail down Aokiji as a character and exactly get a grasp of him is because he's got so many dimensions to him. He's so variable.
Right.
He can, in any given situation, he could be doing the darkest, something seemingly incredibly dark, and then he can be very, very genial, very friendly, at the flick of a switch. So he has so many sides to him, and I feel like Film Z, it accentuated sides of him that I'll pay more attention to or think more about going forward. And those sides about him are like, I've always looked at him as very wise. His interactions with Robin have always been very open-minded, and
right.
Having conviction in directing her a certain way and being very hard on her, but also kind of telling things like they are and clearly having some element of sympathy for her and a little bit of care for her, despite like some actions seeming to contradict that. Like that's who he is. He's all over the place, but very consistent at the same time. And so I knew he was very wise and very open-minded in that way and very flexible. And he kind of applied that generally to Robin's character arc, and I feel like the Marines in general, that's more or less where I've seen that applied from Aokiji specifically. I gotta start calling him Kuzan, I guess. He's still Aokiji to me.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you.
But in the movie, he applies that wisdom and open-mindedness to the idea of the One Piece. I tweeted about this. He talks about the One Piece, and he's like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something along the lines of like, does the One Piece exist because pirates search for it?
Right.
Or like, do pirates search for it because it exists? Is it? He speaks of it in these abstract terms, and like he speaks of it in a way that is so up my alley. Because last time we talked, I talked about not caring at all about what the One Piece is. It's a vehicle for which this adventure, these detours, which are essentially the be all and end all. They're detours, but they themselves are the beauty of the story. It's the vehicle for that. Aokiji kind of speaks in a very metatextual way by saying, yeah, does it exist for pirates to search for it rather than to actually be claimed? Did it just kind of, it almost feels like, did it just conjure itself because people needed a reason to an excuse for conquest or adventure or a journey. And I love that he thinks about that, because to me that's a theme that is not uttered very often, but so embedded in the series' identity. Gaimon, I think of Gaimon. That's essentially the core of Gaimon's character and his chapter. That's still one of the most important chapters in the series to me.
100%. Same here.
And Luffy embodies that by not wanting, like, he yelled at Usopp for asking Rayleigh what it was when he didn't want to know. All that sort of thing. So I love that Aokiji, someone who I've never heard talk about the One Piece, certainly not in this way, is thinking about it in that way and reflects on it that way. And that makes me think, is like he's not nailed down. He doesn't have his roots in the Navy or the world government anymore. So is he going to seek some more worldly goals, or is he just going to be on his bike observing, maybe out of interest? So that I started thinking about those things with him, and that made me appreciate him I already loved him. It elevated that appreciation because I just never thought of him thinking of those things. Right. But it's very in character at the same time. And also he was just, that aside, that's the most important thing I take from it. But also he's just very humorous. He's really silly.
There's hilarious.
There's a scene in the hot tub area or the spa.
Yes.
That's so funny. That was really great.
Yeah, that's a favorite. Like anytime I rewatch that movie, I always look forward to that scene. It's a lot of comedy.
Yeah, and I like that a lot.
There.
I think that's it's less important than the whole One Piece thing monologue he talks about, but I think that's very important for his character as well, to just show maybe a bit of a different direction, leaning more on that more worldly, wise side to him and that humor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that was very well said. That's exactly what I wanted to ask you. That's why I was gonna transition into that, because whenever I saw your post on that, your thoughts on that, I was like, man, this is exactly what we were talking about last time on for your thoughts on the existence of the One Piece. And I was like, man, so I'm so glad that you brought that up. In regards to the movies, tell the audience which ones you've seen so far, and what have been your overall what's your overall experience been with the One Piece movies?
So I've only seen 2. I've been told that I can see Strong World, I think it's called.
You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I may see that. Maybe in the next few weeks. I'm not exactly sure. Mm-hmm. That'll probably be next, I guess, especially since I can see it now. But I've only seen 2. Beira no Matsuri and I think it's movie 6, and this one, film filmsy.
Yeah.
So overall, I enjoyed them a hell of a lot. I really enjoyed them both. I think they're One Piece stories that they do they're sort of kind of to the periphery enough to justify being movies and feeling like these detours, but so loyal to the series at the same time. So they do these things that feel like, whoa, this is kind of different, but it's not like you couldn't see Oda writing them. They're very loyal to the spirit of the series. Baron Omatsuri specifically, I love the direction. I love the kind of that was Hosoda, right, who directed that?
Yes.
So the kind of sort of eclectic directorial style to sort of show this expressiveness in the characters while also kind of portraying this uneasiness that pervades the entire film, and concludes with one of the maybe still to this day, maybe not, because we had Whitebeard and Ace's death and Sabouti, but one of the darkest things the series has done, which is just the conclusion and Baron Omatsuri's plight and all that.
For sure.
I think it looks great. It's super well done. The interactions are awesome. I love Baron Omatsuri as a movie, and I mean, I've just seen it, but Film Z is great too. I really enjoyed it. The Aokiji being prominent was not something I would have expected, but I loved it. And Zephyr Zed is such a fascinating antagonist. This person,
so good.
This person who just wants to eradicate all pirates because of showing, kind of embodying or personifying sort of the dark side of pirates, which is definitely dwelt upon in the series through people like Blackbeard and through the moral strife that people like Garp endure in making decisions because of what the world government stands for in opposing people like that. So it's there throughout the entire series, but I feel like Zephyr is the most visceral example of that, and the way that him and Luffy, I feel like I haven't talked to anyone about this movie. I just kind of watched it, tweeted out my thoughts, and then just sat with it. But I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same. You can let me know. He blanket statement. He had a blanket statement on all pirates. I want the world to be rid of them. And then he met Luffy, and through what Luffy embodied through his conviction and idealism and perseverance, I feel like Luffy changed his mind on that, and Luffy gave him hope that maybe piracy isn't all bad, and
right.
That's the sort of that's what I got from that, and then through that, I feel like he felt a huge weight off his shoulders, and like he could just enjoy this battle he has, fighting with all he has, two people, just fist fights, shonen as hell.
Yep.
So just each of them having their own convictions, but him not being despaired because Luffy is this shining light and this hope, like he is for everyone.
Right.
He is for Zephyr as well. And so he can die kind of feeling, maybe this world isn't lost. Maybe I was premature to give in to despair. And I think it's beautiful that Luffy gives him that reprieve. So it was very meaningful, super interesting, a great foil. Both Baron Omatsuri and Zephyr were great foils to Luffy and the Straw Hats. Two great movies. So I'm looking forward to seeing Strong World and whatever other ones are recommended to me.
Dude, those are two great movies to start off with, by the way.
Yeah.
Baron Omatsuri. I'm so glad you brought up the character dynamics and interactions in that movie, because there's obviously it's beloved for its direction, its art style. It is most certainly, like you said, one of the darkest things that the series ever produced. But the way in which that movie completely nails each individual Straw Hat and their interactions with each other it feels like it was something out of Oda's manga, and I know that is a statement that when put into obviously, right, like they've had a lot of time to really get to know these characters, but what I mean is something like a G8, a filler within the series, where that felt like I was reading Oda's material, but it wasn't Oda's material. It was a team behind it that just really understood these characters. And that's exactly how I felt watching that movie, where I just felt like they understood each individual Straw Hat. And that may sound like an easy task. That is a very difficult task to pull off on. And as we can see, that since it's something, I'm not going to say that it's rare, but when it is well done, we can feel it. When another team is able to capture Oda's vision in that way and present it in their own way. It's such a creative movie in that regard, in so many different ways. But Film Z is really interesting because it kind of felt like a dream movie. You have the story that is completely outside of the series itself, but there's so many elements that make it feel like a celebration of the series. Zephyr as a character feels like someone that should be a character within the manga. The entire existence of like the Neo Marines thing is like, man, this feels like something that will 100% should be a thing. Same thing with their interactions there with Aokiji and the fact that Kizaru's in there too. It's like I couldn't believe that all of these characters were in a movie, for me, the One Piece movies up until that point, I was like, yeah, man, we're going to get our Straw Hats, we're going to go on an adventure, and see what's going on, but to have so many prominent figures that normally aren't even within the series itself, within a movie, that is enough of a selling point. The fact that the story itself was so strong, and the characters that were created for this movie are so strong, to me is so cool, because it sort of feels like One Piece itself, where you go into this new arc, you're anticipating answers to previously held questions, but then you meet new characters, you become so attached to them that when characters like Aokiji show up, or like Kizaru show up, you're like, yo, man, they're here too? But I'm really invested in what Zephyr has cooking as well. So it's like, it really captured what One Piece is, where you go into this new island, stuff is immediately interesting, stuff is popping off, but there are those long-term elements where the world building is on full display, where you're just reminded of how massive and how many characters you truly care about that are not just a part of the main crew. And it captures the spirit of One Piece so well. It's a magnificent movie, and like I said, I'm glad that you that was one of the first ones that you experienced. There's a lot of great One Piece movies, man. It's definitely a series that we're lucky and blessed to have great films in it. But I wanted to talk about that one before this next arc, because I really love this arc, man, and I know that you do too. This story arc means a lot to me on a personal level, because this is where I started the channel, was right at the beginning of this arc.
Awesome.
Like literally right at the beginning of the arc. We were on like 10 chapters in. So this one has a special place in my heart, because I loved what Oda was cooking with the end of Punk Hazard and the beginning of Dressrosa so much that I had to grab a camera and start making videos. I was like, bro, I have to talk about this peak. It's too good. And to this day, not only just the memories with that, but the arc is so strong. It's a very long epic. It's 101 chapters. But it truly, truly is something special, man. It covers so much of Oda's strengths as a writer. It covers so much of the magazine's strengths. I felt like a celebration of Shonen Jump to me, where it does so many things right. You get to see Oda's creativity at the forefront. One of my favorite things about One Piece at the beginning was seeing something like, for example, whenever we ran into Usopp, and we saw how he took the story of Pinocchio and created the whole long nose and the liar thing, and how he would take the big bad wolf and created his story there based on that tale, just odifying it. Similar to Drum Island with the old witch on the mountain and Santa Claus and the reindeer, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and all of these legendary and well-known tales that he just made his own. And Dressrosa was like a return to that with the toy soldiers. And if it was like a Christmas arc inside of my homeland with the Spanish culture, and it was a mesh of so many different cool ideas that were executed at such a high level with one of the most brilliant, incredible antagonists to keep it all together. I can't say enough good things about this arc. Every character in this arc shines, not just within our crew as they always do, but on the antagonist side and on the side of characters that come in within the arc itself. It captures so much of what the series does so well. The hype moments, the emotional moments. It has one of the best flashbacks in the series. It has so many great character moments. Luffy shines as he always does. But that Doflamingo Law dynamic is just it's really, really special. So I just want to get your thoughts on it, man. This is obviously a special one. We're building up to from the moment that we arrive to Fishman Island. We understand that we're building towards something. We start off Punk Hazard. We're like, okay, now we're definitely building up towards something. And to get this, just like you said earlier, there were so many things that were being built up there that we were eventually going to get answers to, and we got a lot of them here. There's a lot of stuff that's paid off here, and so I want to get your thoughts on the incredible Dressrosa saga, man.
Oh man, where do you even start with this? I guess just in terms of my connection or attachment to it, it's I now have I call it my Mount Rushmore of One Piece arcs. Dressrosa made 4 of them, so it is in my absolute peak level of One Piece arcs. It's one of my absolute favorites.
For sure. With
Skypiea, Marineford, and Water 7, Enies Lobby.
That's a strong Mount Rushmore right there, man.
That's the Mount Rushmore. I think what's interesting is that I actually, it's one of the One Piece arcs that I have some problems with in the beginning, and I think I actually have. It's to me, it's one of the arcs that I thought of as most flawed, but.
Agreed.
Like, just to quickly touch on it, I feel like Oda throws so much at you in the beginning with the Colosseum. I could not, for the life of me, keep track of all the characters, and you're not really meant to, and that's okay. But it was just a lot. It was very overwhelming, and I was reading it, I'm like, this is a lot, guys. But anyway, what I think is great is that, and amazing is that I do think it's one of the more flawed arcs, and yet it's still one of the best, because that's how high the peaks are. It just exactly. My mind boggles at the sheer amount of greatness in this arc, because, like, okay, we have Kairos and Rebecca, who I cried to them on stream. The culmination and conclusion of them in Dressrosa moved me to tears. It was unbelievable.
So beautiful.
Very reminiscent of a Gintama arc to me as well, actually.
100%.
But yeah, so that moved me to tears. And they're not even the focus of the arc. Like, they got this reaction out of me, and it's very, they're not nearly as important as Law and Doflamingo and even Corazon to me, thematically, or Luffy, or like they're like they're secondary, and that's how good they are. Bartholomew, I can't say his name right. Like, he's such a genius character. He's such a genius character for a lot, being sort of like an audience insert in a lot of ways, almost being this sort of groupie and being really funny in that way. But inspiring a lot of thought. Like, I've thought multiple times throughout Dressrosa, he's following Luffy, he's doing all these things in his name. What if he starts doing things? Because Luffy consistently says throughout the story, I'm not a hero. Like, make of me what you will, but I never claimed to be a hero. And just, he does his own thing. He does what he wants, what he needs to do. What if, during the story, Bart just starts doing something that goes completely against what Luffy stands for? Like, what then? That could be really interesting for a bunch of reasons. And so I think he's a very entertaining character, but he's also really smart and engaging for a lot of potential reasons, and for a lot of the potential he could bring about. And Bart isn't a major focus either. And it just blows my mind how these things are secondary, and yet they're so good. And, like, for example, I like Cavendish quite a bit, and he's, like, tertiary.
Yeah.
The Straw Hats all have great moments, but there's just so much here, and it's all so good. It has so much to say about the nature of memories, and that's something for me. That's something for me personally that, it's one of the most horrifying fictional ideas. The idea of losing memories, or fictional ideas, just in general, losing memories, or forgetting things, or you being the only one to remember something, like, that is horrifying to me. Always has been. Right. And I think they do it so well with Kairos and turning into toys and all of that. It's done so well. So many great things about nature versus nurture, and dissecting Corazon versus Doflamingo, and all the nuances there, and the beautiful relationship with Law and Corazon, and then comparing, unbelievable, and then comparing Doflamingo with Law, and the strange yet nuanced relationship that Doflamingo has with his subordinates, and you know, it's this beautifully epic, poetic, sweeping, emotional shonen arc, like, just masterwork of shonen, while also being a very, very deliberate character study. Like, that Dressrosa, as much as it is One Piece distilled, you know, for so many reasons, as much as it is this beautiful tale of loss and love and between and memories, it's also just a dissection and study of, to me, the most fascinating mind in One Piece, in Doflamingo. This arc is Doflamingo. It's unbelievable. And what I find interesting is that he's actually, I said Hody Jones is completely unique, and he remains to be. But Hody Jones, there are actually a couple of similarities with Hody and Doflamingo in my mind, that I think Hody kind of set the foundation in terms of character writing for Doflamingo to be more complex and sprawling and sort of spring off of those ideas. So in that way, I think it builds off of previous arcs too. But anyways, can you tell I love Doflamingo? He's at the forefront of this arc. He is consistently brilliant. The more layers you peel back, the more beautiful and genius you can see the writing is, metaphorically, thematically, in so many ways. And so there's no way this arc cannot be one of my absolute favorites. I love what Luffy does throughout it. I love what he represents. Usopp has some great stuff. Half the crew leaves during it, and I didn't miss them, which is pretty gigantic. Nami's one of my favorite characters too. I love the crew who left, but I didn't feel like I missed them, which tells you a hell of a lot about Oda knew exactly what he was doing in splitting them up in that way.
Right. So there's a particular section in there that's extremely memorable to me. It was a 3-week back-to-back weekly experience that I'll never forget, where it was chapters 729, 730, and 731, where one of them, in 729, we have Doflamingo just lighting up Law, and you're like, what in the world is going on? Did Law just die before our eyes? And so when we finished that chapter, we go to the next one. We're like, okay, we're going to continue here. We did. We continued there. Luffy and Zoro and the squad are pulling up. It's like, man, what is happening? But Sanji calls and he's like, "Yo, we're dealing with something right now." You cut out, and you see Big Mom's ship.
Yeah.
That was one of the most shocking page turns I've ever had, where I was like, "There's no way this is happening right now." And what the response to that, like you said, leading to all of them setting off from that point on, we don't see them again after that, and it's like, of course we want to know what happened to them, but the stuff happening right now is so interesting and so immersive. Like, okay, we'll get to that whenever we get to that. But at the time, at that point, we were like, "What in the world is going on? Is this really happening?" And so we're following in the following chapter, in chapter 731, we then get the confirmation and the return in one of the most emotional moments in the entire series, in the fact that Sabo is alive.
How did I miss that? How did I not say that? Oh my god, yeah. Oh, I can't believe. Yes, sorry, go on.
No, you're good, dude. Like, it's that's how you know this arc is so packed, right? Like, it's that moment for me. I'll never forget where I was where I read it. There's certain things, no matter what the story is, where you never forget where you are when you read that, and that was one of those moments where, for so long after the ASL flashback, you're like, will Sabo ever make a prominent return in the story? Is he dead? What happened there? And for him to be brought back in the way that he was, it was so emotional, because you get two major reveals back to back that hit you extremely hard, where you're thinking to yourself, like, wait a minute, is this who I think it is? You see the outline, you see Luffy's reaction, you're like, it can only be one guy, right? You see the 3 sake cups, you're like, there's no way, it has to be him. It's so emotional. But then right there with that, you get Koala, the individual from the Fisher Tiger flashback, is with Sabo, is still alive, and is doing better than ever. Like, those two back to back was just such an emotional punch that to this day it remains like one of my absolute favorite chapter reading experiences that I've had while experiencing the series weekly. It's a lot of those moments are in this arc. The Gear 4, right, with whenever you go from the chapter 783 stuff, well, even before that, when Luffy finds Bellamy again, which Bellamy, we talked about this before, he's a character that I absolutely adore. But whenever he returns in this arc, and we see how the events of Jaya and Skypiea changed him, and now he's like, "Yo, I'm a changed man," right? Like, but even then, he still has his loyalties to Doflamingo. We see how loyal his people are to him. And he gets that punch in again, but this time it means something entirely different. And now that sets up Luffy for that final confrontation to have with Doflamingo again, where he gets back to Law. Obviously, Law is about to get stepped on. Luffy comes in, and they have that clash with their feet. It's extremely iconic. But then whenever we follow that up with the legendary scene of the 4, where it's just a panel of, where it just states 4. He's like, "Gear," and everybody's like, "Okay, are we going 3, 2? What are we doing?" Nah, son, 4. And it's so hype, man. And when you follow that up, obviously, whether you're experiencing the series weekly or you're going through it on binge, you're like, what in the world is going to be the next thing, right? Like, the number 2 is what it is. Number 3 is what it is. It's like, then what in the flying flag nards is going to be number 4? And so, obviously, you don't even know if there is going to be another one. So the fact that there's a confirmation here within this major battle, which is already insanely hype, then you're like, okay, what is it going to be? And it ends up being this extremely, not only just comedic and so One Piece transformation that just is so true to Luffy's character, but man, does it go hard, bro? Like, from that point on, Luffy versus Doflamingo, it just gets absolutely insane. Where it feels like Dofi is able to go. We see Dofi not only going all out, but where someone's finally like doing what they should have been doing this entire time to Doflamingo, and it's very cathartic, right? Where obviously I love Doflamingo, but somebody really needed to punch that man for a lot of different reasons, and so the stuff there at the end is just it's so emotional, it's so incredible, but that final fight, man, it's so awesome. I mean, just having Luffy and Law doing their tag team attacks against Doflamingo was really, really cool, with like the Room Red Hawk combo, the Law flashback, obviously with Corazon's one of the greatest ever, and there's a lot of stuff there, but it's just, just talking about it like that, it reminds you, man, there's a lot of stuff that happens here. Like, it's insane. It's insane, man. Going into the post arc stuff, and you can add anything from what I just talked about into this, but going into the post arc stuff, after Luffy defeats Doflamingo, we have some very interesting chapters where we go around the world for a little bit, and we see what's currently taking place not only within the Marines, but of course we cut over in chapter 795. And we're finally formally introduced to, similar to Big Mom at the end of Fishman Island, we get the opportunity to see the man, the myth, the legend that has been, we heard Doflamingo talk about him throughout the course of Dressrosa. We know that this is an individual that just hearing this person's name inflicts fear within their hearts. We're finally introduced to Kaido. And it's a really, really strong introduction. The entire chapter is incredible in a multitude of different ways, but the introduction is so it's unlike any other transformation and any other introduction that we've seen up until this point. And I think it's just it's another one of those like, Oda, man, what's going on in that brain of yours for you to write this right at the end of this arc. It's so cool. It's one of those moments where you just never forget it once you experience it. And I just have to ask thoughts on the post arc stuff, and obviously as well with chapter 801. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there in regards to the bounty posters, and there's a lot of stuff that takes place there at the end of that arc, but. The in particular that 795 introduction for a character that's been built up for a really long time. Just give me your thoughts on the end of Dressrosa there.
Yeah. Oh man, what an introduction! It's probably my favorite introduction to a character. People were like, I asked and was like, what are some other really good introductions throughout the series? And I don't know if I'm confident in saying that it's the best, but it's definitely in the conversation for it.
For sure.
It's amazing. It actually reminds me. So it's weird. There are some characters in One Piece that feel like walking legends, because of their notoriety, because of the influence they've had, because of how people speak of them, because of what they've done. They feel like living legends, walking the earth, that like every step they take is like they I don't know, the earth kind of quakes before them, because there's just history steeped in every step they take. They just carry this aura. I think of Whitebeard as one, Roger was one, I think of Rayleigh as one, Shanks, and immediately one chapter of Kaido, and I think that adds him into the equation. The way he was narrated, his attempts at death, and but just the way that alone is interesting. Is interesting, and I'm interested to see where that goes. But less so the content; it's more the way he's presented, the narration, the prose, the way it speaks of him as this figure, like this force, this symbol, this icon almost, in an almost like storybook-esque way. His introduction reminded me of Whitebeard's death, the narration for Whitebeard's death.
Yes.
It felt like mirror images of one another. And so immediately I got kind of those Whitebeard vibes, not in that they're similar characters in terms of their personality, but in terms of their presence. They step into the story, and they're just so magnetic, and you can't help but, no matter what's going on, your eyes just naturally draw to them because they just carry this weight. That's what I got of Kaido, and obviously the character design itself is, my goodness. That's what I got about him. I'm really interested in the stuff, his preoccupation with death and some of the supernovas coming into contact with him and where that's going to go and his plot relevance. I'm, of course, super interested in that. But more than anything, one chapter of him and what I take away is just what he made me feel in terms of his presence and the impact he had. And that was gigantic. Right. It's such a tone setter. It's so effective. So he's one of my most anticipated characters going forward, including the ones I already know. Like, and he just had one chapter. That's pure efficiency. And it's not even because of me theorizing about his role or anything. It's just because what I had from him left such an impact on me because of the way in which he was presented. So I think he's a masterclass in presentation. And, you know, it seems like we're going to be on a crash course with him eventually, given their current goals. So I can't wait for that. I don't have any idea how that's going to come together, but man, what an introduction. And then just to go back a little bit with a couple things you mentioned, because I somehow didn't mention Sabo. Dressrosa is gigantic, man.
Yeah, man.
One of the most shocking and cathartic moments of the whole manga for me was because I theorized about him being alive after seeing that in post-war or the ASL flashback, whenever it was, that Dragon's crew had pulled someone out of the water and they were really badly injured or whatever. I'm like, I mean, that's gonna be that's there for a reason. That might be Sabo, but we'll see. And then was it 668, the chapter where you see the graves of Whitebeard and Ace, and there are sake cups there.
Hold on, let me see. 668. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I saw that chapter cover in the middle of Punk Hazard. I'm like, okay, well, Luffy.
Right.
Luffy. I mean, that's Ace's grave. There's 3 people in the world who would do that. That's Ace's grave. Luffy's off fighting Caesar and whatever he's doing. So I mean, but so I was pretty much certain he was alive. But for it to again sneak up on you like that in this context, and him to be meeting Luffy right away, and then to be fighting together, like the moment where he blocks off one of I don't remember it was maybe who it was maybe Burgess, where he defends Luffy because Luffy's gassed from and needs to charge up again. That was I was literally calling out for it.
I was watching that one. Yeah. You went crazy for that one.
I was just like, Sabo, and yep. It was so amazing. I love that. And what I like about him is he seems a little like, one, I love that he has Ace's fruit. That's inherited will, like symbolically and literally, and there's no one better to have it. It's perfect. But he also seems to be a little bit of a dark tinge to him. He's a little bit unhinged in the way that he fights. He seems to have this inner darkness to him that I find really, really enticing. So I wonder where that's going to go, or if it's just a current element of his character that's just going to be a constant factor. I don't know. Either way, Sabo definitely shot straight up in my list because of this, and he was one of the shining lights of Dressrosa as well. And you mentioned Koala. Love how she's brought back into it. It's genius. And Bellamy, I just wanted to touch on Bellamy because I didn't mention him either. Love his role as well. Such great recontextualization and such conviction in how he fought Luffy, carrying the natural extrapolation of his the path he took and realizing that he made a mistake, but not regretting it. Like there's something really admirable about that. And yeah, the cliffhanger for Gear 4. Oh man, I had a bet during the stream, like my chat was going. Did you see that? Yeah,
I remember that.
My chat was going like, I'm like, okay, last chapter, kind of like what I do with Naruto, and they're going, okay, there's no way you'll be able to stop after this. I'm like, no, I'm definitely gonna stop, because when people tell me I can't do something, I'm stubborn, so I gotta do it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna stop no matter what. But it ended at Gear 4. It ended right there. It was the worst possible place to stop, and I did stop, but I was in pain. And one thing in particular I love about Gear 4 is, yes, it's so One Piece. It's kind of a subversion from maybe what some people might expect in that moment, but yet so appropriate at the same time. And what I love about it is it's, I think it's an encapsulation, and just an encapsulation of Luffy post time skip, because it has his elasticity, his bounce back ability, and his rubber in his rubber powers. That's baked into Gear 4. But it has armament hockey, right? Making him stout, resolute. And I think that's representative of his newfound experience and maturity, and all that he's learned over the past 2 years, and the tragedy at Sabaody. I think in that way, Gear 4 is representative of him, this new Luffy. The same person he always was, but more mature and more resolute, and properly ready to take on whatever is ahead of him. So yeah, all those things, we just went back on that. But the end of Dressrosa, the ending part, like I mentioned Kaido, the ending parts of arcs are some of my favorite things. When Oda catches up, on all the stuff going on around the world. The bounty stuff was tons of fun. I particularly got a kick. This isn't directly tied to the bounties, but the way that Law addresses each of the Straw Hats is really fun. And him calling Usopp God.
Yeah, man.
I love that so much. Just so matter-of-factly calls him God.
Right.
That's great.
That was a great moment.
But just sort of catching up with everything, seeing the worlds react, and they're such great hooks. And again, I got to applaud Oda, because this man's patience. Oh my gosh, he introduces Doflamingo in Jaya, and doesn't properly flesh him out until 500 chapters later. He does that with hints at like Whitebeard, and he just has the patience, the unbelievable patience. So, and that he's got so many things planned with when he does these catch-up sequences. I just can't imagine how painstaking it must be to do it and know where it's gonna go, but not show your hand, because you gotta play the long game. But because of that, it's some of my favorite stuff, and Dressrosa was absolutely no exception.
Right. I have to ask before I go into something that I've been really, really excited to talk to you about. What were your thoughts on Fujitora?
Oh yeah! Oh my god! And I forgot Fujitora. He's one of my favorite characters in He's amazing.
Same. He's so good.
Oh, man. He's another one who carries this immense weight and presence to him. And what's interesting is that throughout a lot of the arc, we don't actually get a ton of the substance. We just get a lot of little lines here and there that hint at what he may be doing. He may be gauging the Straw Hats, or we don't really know where his loyalties lie. And there's the bit the interaction he has with Doflamingo, where it's like he seems to be allying with him, and Doflamingo's like, "Oh, you're on my side," and he goes, "No, but the Straw Hats are are in conflict with you. This could cause so much collateral damage and pain for the citizens of Dressrosa. That is what he's trying to protect, this collateral damage. That's why he opposes the Straw Hats, not because of actually thinking, like, disagreeing ideologically with them, or thinking that Doflamingo's right, or any of that. It's because he thinks of the people. And then he says, I'll deal with you later. So I love that. Just, he's very pragmatic in that way, very savvy, very experienced and astute. And he keeps you guessing throughout a lot of Dressrosa. And then when he finally... the lines, I don't remember the exact lines, but what he says about losing his sight I think the implication is that he maybe carved his eyes out. At least that's an interpretation I think that is valid of what he says, due to the atrocities he's committed and the things he's seen. Like, that is something that has a ton of weight to it. And then bowing down to Riku, King Riku.
Oh yeah.
And knowing,
Fantastic
amazing
scene.
scene, because he knows, very Garp-like, in that he knows what that gesture means. Garp and Marineford was so conflicted because he knew the cascading byproducts that siding with Luffy would cause, and he had to make difficult decisions because of that. Fujitora knows that exact thing, and because of that, chooses to do what the world government wouldn't want him to do, and bow down to King Riku and show culpability, knowing what a ripple that's going to send throughout the shockwave it's going to send throughout the entire seas. I adore that. No ego, no pride, completely just keeping in mind what's good for the sake, or what's right.
Right.
And just doing it, just completely prostrating himself because he knows that's what's right and that's what he stands for. And the whole thing, he's got that sort of Kansai dialect.
Yeah.
I love that. A lot of my favorite characters have that dialect. We were just talking about Majima, or similar dialect. So, and then the stuff with, like, he's ordered to chase after the Straw Hats, and it seems to me like he was he's going, okay, well, we'll see what fortune has in store for them, and he's I don't know if he was rolling dice or he was doing something to go, like, once this outcome occurs, then I'll go after them, and I think he was fudging that the entire time until
sure.
Like, okay, they've gotten a head start, let's go now. So he's got this soft side to him. He's got this, like, I just feel like he is at heart, good person who may have done horrible things in the past and is doing great things, but a good person at heart. And, the weight he carries, everything he says, I'm glued to the screen, or to the page, just wanting to know what he's going to do next. He's amazing.
One of my favorite scenes in Dressrosa comes in that scene you were just talking about, where the Straw Hats are about to leave. Fujitora's trying to stop them, quote unquote, and he turns around and he just says, "Straw Hat Luffy, honest to a fault. Everybody seems determined to save you. What kind of man are you? What color's your hair? What shape are your eyes? What features do you wear?" And he's like, "I suppose I shouldn't have closed these eyes. Now I want to take a look at your face." And it's such a beautiful scene, man. Like, it's so good. We talked about Zephyr earlier with Film Z and how Luffy came in and changed him. Fujitora is, man, I mean, he's just like, I don't know how Oda continues to create these extremely compelling characters that have a very strong internal conflict that makes its way, it becomes very prevalent within the plot itself, causing it to be external. But he's one of those characters that he's just so good, and that particular line captures exactly why I love Fujitora's character. And but man, bro, going into the post-arc stuff, chapter 802 and 803 are in particular pretty memorable, considering this is the first time we see certain characters in quite some time. And in chapter 802, we get the formal introduction to a character that I still can't believe. This was a thing that happened in this chapter. You know, I know you're a big Whitebeard fan.
I am.
What did you think about the introduction of Weevil?
Oh my god!
In this particular chapter,
That's one that kept me guessing. Because like I at times it felt like a gag, and then at times I'm like, no, this is actually the tone of this is pretty serious. And then at times, my reaction to Weevil was essentially confusion.
yeah.
While at the same time going like, yeah, this is definitely an Oda thing to do.
Right.
It does make me wonder if, because we've had now a couple of instances of characters in One Piece be modeling themselves after other characters, whether it be accurately or inaccurately. Like we've seen that kind of a subset of inherited will almost. So I do. Mostly it was just like that. That was a fun chapter. This is definitely something that happens like a lot, I'm sure, and this is just one case of it. But it also made me think like, is this going to be a character that has a bigger role? I don't. That could have just been a one-off, and it was just a little glimpse into that sort of idea that Oda wanted to share. Or it could be something that has relevance down the line, and I could see either of them being the case. So mostly it was just a lot of it was very fun. It was very goofy in a very One Piece way when all was said and done. It made me a bit nostalgic for Whitebeard and a little wistful.
For sure.
And also just like, so what's going on with him? What's his role?
Right.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, no, that like you said, that's an Oda thing if I've ever seen it, where you just have so many questions. It's not only hilarious, but you're wondering, should I take this seriously?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? And of course, that's the very same chapter where we first get the opportunity to see Zoe in one of the coolest Ope spreads, man. I absolutely love how we come off of Dressrosa, which is this extremely fantastical land, and we're like, okay, what's going to be in store for us next? Elephants. It's like this massive, humongous elephant, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely One Piece, bro. Like this is without question the essence of One Piece right here. And not only is it an elephant, as it states at the end of chapter 802, it's an elephant that's been alive for an entire millennium. Like, it's just the intrigue, the mystery. This is Oda we're talking about, man. Like, it's incredible. Do you have any? I know you're on 807, but do you have any quick thoughts on that, on like Zoe and what you thought whenever you saw it?
I adored it. It's one of those locations that just makes you feel like you're in a JRPG and a manga.
Yes.
It was such a like. There's just it's just a moment you got to just sit back and just take it in. Just take in the spread, take in the imagery, and just go, this is like why you experience stories. So people can think of locales like this and things like this, and you can be immersed in them, because I mean this is only something that can be done in stories, and it's why they're so beautiful. I felt very similar feelings to when I first saw Skypiea.
Right, same here.
Just so fantastical, yet absolutely a place that feels like it could exist in this One Piece world, in this setting. So that, just awe and wonder. But then you see the eyes of the elephant, and they're hollowed out and haunting. They look, to me, they looked super ominous. And I don't know if that's just, to me, I don't know if that's just, obviously, it's been there for millennia. So makes sense that its eyes are hollowed out. It could just be a detail, like a detail that looks dark and ominous, but it's just a little bit of flavor. Or could it be hinting at some incoming darkness down the road, or maybe not necessarily something to do with Zoe, but something to do with the idea or something incoming for the crew? I don't know. It just made me think, like that. Ooh, like I was like, wow, this is amazing. Oh wow, what is that? I, hmm. So it just stimulated my imagination in completely different directions simultaneously. I loved it. Like that spread in itself, or that spread, that chapter where it's all introduced. That's a huge part of why I read One Piece at all. Is that imagination,
Yes.
that scope, those aesthetics, those illustrations, that locale, that immersion.
Yeah, very very well said. That's exactly how I felt while I was going through that as well. It's just God, man. You think back, like you said, JRPGs, and just have like the classic Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy soundtrack in your
Yeah.
head. Like this is without question. Or like a more fitting one would be Final Fantasy X, where you're just like, yeah, this is wild, but this is exactly why I play this stuff, to experience settings like this.
Absolutely.
And it's so cool. In the following chapter, Buggy.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. The
I was
first
like-
time you see it. Yes.
Yep. I was like, yo, man, I couldn't wait to talk to you about this, because obviously this is our first time we get to see this character in the time skip, and just look at him, man. It's our boy, and he's officially considered within chapter 803 a warlord of the sea.
Yes.
What did you think about that insane reveal that Buggy, of all characters, is considered one of the 7 warlords?
Well, because it was at least hinted at in Fishman Island or Punk Hazard or something.
Yes, it was.
So
Yep.
I had that idea in my mind, but and even if I felt like it was internally, it might have been confirmed. Like, it's one thing to hear about it, and it's another thing to see it in execution.
Yep.
And I missed him. I missed him so much. You know how much
Yeah.
I enjoy what he does
sure.
on so many levels. He's such a intelligently written character, while being so entertaining. And so to see the influence he's accrued, and he's now like a warlord, that's gigantic. That's a huge figure, a ton of influence, a ton of power and notoriety. And firstly, I'm wondering, okay, what is the end game? Because he says he's known as Buggy the Genius Jester. He's interested in becoming legitimate, like making this legal business with what he's doing. You see Mr. 3 there with him. So those two have been sticking together, which is really cool.
Yep. One of the best dynamics.
Super good. And they're getting messages from like people from Dressrosa, like Haruden. There's people quitting, people joining their company. Like what was it called? Buggy's delivery. It was just a crumb, but it was the most delicious crumb I've tasted in my life, and I just want more. Like, what does he do? Why is he trying to be legitimate? What is his end goal? Is he trying to take down an emperor? Is he trying to become an emperor? Is he trying to become the king of the pirates? I don't even know. I think back to Blackbeard, and how he used the warlords as a stepping stone. And as great as it is to see Buggy falling upward into becoming a warlord, because that's a gigantic achievement in terms of influence, considering where he came from. It's huge. It's deeply notable. I think that, like Blackbeard, I think this is a stepping stone for him. I think he's setting his sights higher. I don't know the specifics. I don't have any theories about exactly how he's going to do it, but I think everything he's doing is, in a really interesting way, conducive to that. So, oh man, I want more of him. I want more. But it was great to see. It was so great to see him here, and it just had my mind spinning with, what's he doing in the future? What's he up to? Where's he going to go? Because I really don't feel like they're going to stop at him being a warlord. I think he's going to go higher.
Dude, right before that, because this chapter was loaded with incredible crumbs for that were without question very, very delicious crumbs. Right before the buggy greatness, we had the opportunity to also see some characters that I know you must have been very excited to see. Dragon is prevalent in this chapter for a few pages. Yes. And it's extremely interesting considering what we get to find out, especially with his current connection, obviously to Sabo, Koala, and stuff of that nature. But immediately following that, we finally get to see something that, as we were talking about earlier, has been building up in the background. And we finally get to see other members besides Burgess of Blackbeard's crew. We get to see Lafitte, we see Shiryu, and according to them, they have found the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army. And it is an absolutely... I remember whenever that chapter dropped, it was one of those things where, like you were talking about with the crumbs with Buggy, I was like, man, please, Oda, I know that I know you, so we're gonna go to something else, but please, I want to see what this is gonna lead to, please. So, do you have any thoughts on, we see those panels there with Dragon, then we immediately cut over, and we get to see that they're, at the very least, have found this place that has remained hidden for so long. And it just so happened to be them, of all people, after they just finished having a skirmish within the Dressrosa arc with Sabo and Burgess. So what did you think about those in particular, those little crumbs next to the Buggy stuff?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's very promising for whatever it'll lead to, and I felt exactly how you did. Like, I know you're gonna cut away, Oda. You're gonna cut away, but I want to see it. But I know you're not going to. It's fine. It's something that, because the way they word it is, I found it like the implication is that they've been searching for it for a while, and it's been this sort of long-term plan, which means it's not something they're doing on a whim. It's not something that Blackbeard's doing just to be chaotic, let's just do that, why not? Like, it feels like there's some element of planning to it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot that I don't really know what to make of. There's, and from what they also mentioned Sabo as, like, in very negative terms from what I remember.
You're right. They I know in the Viz, they were like, that hateful Sabo. Screw that guy.
So, I mean, there's obviously some personal vendetta there, I guess. Him being hateful, whatever. So there's some sort of antagonism there, but I just don't really. Maybe it's slipping my mind right now why Blackbeard specifically is interested in the revolutionists. I don't really know. It's not a natural thing I'd assume for him to do. Sure, I don't think they'd be allies or anything close to that, but Dragon and his revolutionists don't strike me as a sort of faction that Blackbeard would look at as a priority in terms of being directly opposed to him, unless they themselves stimulated it and then Dragon and the revolutionists reacted. But that they haven't done that because they were looking for them. So I don't really, I'm kind of stumped with it. I don't really know why he would be going for them. I think it's part of the ladder to the top, another rung in the mountain, to get to the top of the mountain. But the specifics of how, I'm kind of in the dark. I have theories about a lot of things. But like I said, with Blackbeard and Aokiji are the two big ones where I'm like, what are you cooking? I really don't know.
Right.
I'm really kind of in the dark about that, which is really exciting for me because it just makes me want more and more of those crumbs. But I guess all in its due time. I'm actually curious, like, what your reaction was to that when you first read it.
So, man. So I'm currently trying to recall what it was, but I'm sure that it was something very similar. I know for a fact that it, with especially in the community, we were coming up with a lot of different ideas at the time, similar to some of the stuff that you just said. There was like a few lines that were stated not, by certain characters and by the characters themselves, that was sort of like, man, Oda, what's going on here? like I know you're clearly trying to tell us something, but we can't put the pieces together. So especially at that point, in the early 800s, it was just one of those things, especially with everything else that was going on. It was, I'm not going to say that it was sort of pushed to the back, because we always discuss certain possible events that could happen in the future. But it was one of those things that was like, hold on, man. Like, Oda's trying to misdirect us from this. We can't allow him to do that. we can't allow him to get away with this. You know what I mean? So, yeah, my reaction was very similar to yours, where it was like, man, what in the flying flag nerds is being cooked here, man? There's obvious connections, but it's like, what's going on?
It's a lot of things that I feel like once I know what's actually going on, I'm gonna go back to the chapter and go like, that's why that line's there. That's why that line's there. But I feel like I don't have the context to know right now, which is both really frustrating, but like in a good way, and super exciting at the same time. Yeah, really interesting. I can't wait for when Blackbeard is kind of similar to when I was waiting for Doflamingo to get his arc to shine. I can't wait for Blackbeard to get something similar.
In a similar line of thought, for like never forgetting how I reacted to certain things. Just to clarify once again with the audience, you're on chapter 807, right?
Yeah, I just finished it.
Yeah. So chapter 806 ends on a cliffhanger that I will never forget. It most certainly is one of those that, like you said, a lot of theories, a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas. I know you probably have a lot of thoughts on this, so I'll let you take the floor. But the chapter ends with Nami finally seeing Luffy and them for the first time since the Dressrosa arc. And she runs up to them, gives Luffy a massive hug, and immediately feels something's off. And Zoro's like, you know, he can always pick up on this type of stuff. But Nami says, I'm so sorry. It's Sanji. And it's like, what in the what in the flying flag? I was like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean it's Sanji? So I have to ask, man, what are your thoughts on this, and where do you personally think we can potentially go with this?
Well, so I have read 807 as well, which hints at it being very Sanji's disappearance. They speak very vaguely, which is infuriating to me, because they're like,
right,
yeah, he was kind of like rattled about something, and there's definitely Oda was definitely dancing around it intentionally,
right.
But it has something to do with Big Mom and their them being in conflict with Big Mom, like we hear about during Dressrosa. But aside from that, I don't think there are any specifics that I know about. And what I'm thinking is that I think Sanji, who seemed to be acting, kind of Sanji and Nami seem to be acting leaders of when they branched off. But like I think the that half of the crew was called like Sanji's. They were named after Sanji, I think.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, yes.
So he definitely was taking leadership, was taking responsibility, and it feels to me like in a situation like that, if they got to a situation where him sacrificing himself in one way or another in order to save the rest of the crew would work out, I think he would do that. And I think something like that happened. Now, why Big Mom or Big Mom's crew want him or are using him as a captive, there could be a couple of things. Sanji is a cook, and Big Mom likes food if you want to just go the really simple route. He could be captive for that. For something to do with that. That's a connection that I saw. Like, I've always thought that Whole Cake Island, which I assume will be a future arc, would involve Big Mom and Sanji, because just Sanji's job. He's the cook. He's food. It's so essential to his being. So it could have something to do with that. It could also have something to do with having leverage for the conflict that Luffy sort of initiated on Fishman Island. Having a captive, having a hostage, or it could be both of them, and they don't have to be mutually exclusive. So I'm thinking something along the lines of that in terms of what it means for the plot, but not confident really either way. What I am pretty sure about, I just get the vibes. Like I said, I still think we're going to go to Whole Cake Island. I think that's going to be an arc. And I really think something I've been talking about, I talked about in the last discussion we had, I really think we're going to get that Sanji backstory. We're missing bits. We're missing huge bits that are hinted at consistently. And I've been noting that since for hundreds and hundreds of chapters. I've been wanting it to happen. I think it's going to happen. It's all set up to be a Sanji-centric arc for one reason or another. Whether he's being held captive, whether he gets separated from the crew for an extended amount of time. I don't know. I think this is gonna lead in one way or another to him being fleshed out and properly seeing all of Sanji's backstory and all of why he acts the way he does in totality, because I do feel like we're still missing some bits. That's something I'm pretty confident about, but it's a much more general thing. In terms of the plot, I think it could be a bunch of things that I mentioned. It's really exciting though. Like that sets the stage for some great Sanji stuff, which I've really been craving. So those are my feelings on it at the moment. Really exciting development, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm extremely excited to continue to see your reactions to that. I think we talked about this before, but I have so much love for a lot of different stretches in the series, but from Dressrosa until you catch up it's really special.
Oh man.
It's you have a lot of greatness in store, man. Some of Oda's all-time greats are definitely on the horizon. So I cannot wait for those reactions, man. Or I have a few questions if you still have a little bit of time from the community. Just let me know if you need to head out at any point.
I've got time.
Okay.
But sorry, can I just mention one thing before you get into them?
Yeah.
Something I've been meaning, unless this... Do any of the questions have anything that might have to do with, like, Momonosuke, Kinemon, or Kanjiro? Or can I mention that now?
Let me go ahead and see. Maybe one of them. So I guess I'll ask this, and then let me know if they're one of those. So Thomas the Batman, one of his questions is, which 5 or more characters who have been introduced after the time skip do you like or find interesting the most? So if one of those falls into that category, if not, go ahead and spit, my man, on those characters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think they fall into those 5, so I'll just but like,
yeah.
yeah, let me just explain, I guess. It's become a meme in my streams. I don't know if you've seen this, but
Mm-hmm.
I like Kinemon and Momonosuke. We didn't mention them earlier, but I think they were a cool aspect of
Yeah.
Punk Hazard. I enjoyed them.
Absolutely.
And
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing with Kanjudo and how they had to go back and save him on Dressrosa and all that stuff was an interesting sort of plot thread that I kept my eye on. But I'm just like, at first, I'm just like, okay, there's this guy who's associated with them and they want to go and save him. Okay. And I didn't really think much of it. And then Oda began presenting Kanjudo in these ways that I felt so sus about. Like, I thought it was so fishy. Because first I
Mm-hmm.
just thought of him as a guy, just a random guy, just a character that may be like tertiary and whatever. But then I remember specifically there's a flashback where they're showing how Kanjudo sacrificed himself so that Momonosuke and Kinemon could go free while he got captured. And they specifically just they don't show his face. Oda doesn't show his face, and not only that, because I guess you could do that because you want to reveal the character design when you actually meet him properly. I guess that's an explanation. But he's also just the composition of the panels and the illustration is so weirdly ominous to me. He's shrouded in shadow. He's just completely
Mm-hmm.
shrouded in shadow. And just the point of view is so it almost felt villainous to me. And not that I think Kanjudo's a villain, but it made me start thinking like Oda's putting a weird amount of weight on this character that is this unknown factor. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I started paying attention to Kanjudo, and then from there on, the way they talk about him, I don't have any specific examples, so sorry about that. But like, they talk about him in ways that would be very strange. Like they'd slip in a line there that would just make me think like, that's an interesting thing to say about Kanjudo. And so my impression of him just built and
Mm-hmm.
built, and I was pretty convinced that he was going to be more than I assumed at first as a character. And then we get to meet him, and he's got a really interesting character design, but he's just kind of this silly guy. He's just this guy, very unassuming. He's just a guy. He's just a very unassuming. Got this power where he draws these creatures badly, and it's humorous and whatever. But he's pretty normal for One Piece standards, and so my chat got a kick out of that because I'm just like, no, there's still more to him. There's still more to him. And so I don't know if I'm on that copium. And I just picked up on something that wasn't there, and Oda just chose to present him in that way and didn't intend for the audience to be sus of him in the way I was sus of him. But I still feel that Kanjudo is there's more than meets the eye with him. And I could easily be clowning. I could easily be coping. Maybe this is just a gigantic miss, but I've decided to just lean on it completely and it be one of those all or nothing sort of theories, I guess, that I'm going all in on Kanjudo being more than like maybe a dark tinge to him, maybe something ominous, but definitely more than meets the eye. And every chapter that goes by that he's just a guy, that seems less and less likely, but I'm not going to give up. So I just wanted to lay that out there. Kanjudo, I have a weird relationship with him, and those are my thoughts on him. It's a very funny sort of thing, but
Yeah.
by the time we talk next time, we'll see. Maybe I'll have been exposed and given up, and maybe I'm a clown, or maybe I was cooking. Who's to say?
The clown thing again, the
Yeah.
clown emojis all over
Yep.
again. Oh no, that for sure will be fun for the for the beauty of the memes. We'll definitely come back with that next time around. But no, yeah. So but on that same line of thought, in regards to the time skip characters, I know you just talked about the those three. Which of course got quite a bit of screen time within Dressrosa and well, first in Punk Hazard, then within Dressrosa. But which other characters that have been introduced after time skip? I know we've already talked about a few of them, but if you just want to highlight them, do you like the most so far?
The ones that I like the most. Okay, well, Corazon. Let's think. I guess Fujitora. I also have a ton of love for Kairos. I love Kairos. I think he's amazing. So he would be another. Shirahoshi, like I mentioned earlier. Fisher Tiger. I guess it's a flashback, but even still. I guess those would be the top 5 actually. Or you can substitute Hody Jones in there because I really do love how he's written and presented. But yeah, in terms of pure like new characters, those are some that those are probably the 5/6 that struck me the most. Otohime as well is right up there. Amazing character.
Amazing.
And then of course there's characters that have been changed a lot past the time skip, but that's not what the question was asking.
Right.
But like for example, Sabo's one. Sengoku's change I really love. So yeah.
Yeah, that one's really cool. Yeah, for sure. In like a similar type of way, just the opposite. Derek of Rivia says, I can now ask the question from last time whenever I thought he was further. Who is the most annoying character, and why is it Treble?
Well, that's actually interesting because, yeah, Treble's annoying. I think he's intentionally annoying. But actually, one of my mods, Trish, kind of preached to me about Treble a bit, and at first I didn't really look at him I didn't really spare him a second thought, but he's actually pretty damn essential to Doflamingo's ascent or descent, depending on how you think of it, because of how he essentially committed to crowning this Dark King. Essentially, like I said, Dressrosa does so much with experience versus inherent nature, and there may have been something in Doflamingo's experiences that would have maybe shied him away from that path, but Treble made sure that his path was clear. He avoided everything. He made sure that he was brought up with no obstacles in his way to be the Dark King, the Dark Prince, whatever you want to call it, that he ended up being. And that's incredibly devious and incredibly important to the plot, and I think adds this really cool element to him. That, yeah, he's silly, he's goofy, he can be really annoying, but he's actually really essential to Doflamingo's journey, and I think a really cool eye into the sort of Don Quixote family culture, and they all serve him, and they all want for him to be all that he can be in this sort of way. It's kind of like, it reminds you of like the anti-Straw Hats almost. They're kind of parallels with the Straw Hats in that way.
That's a great point.
And in that way, Treble trying to eliminate all obstacles for Doflamingo to be this Dark King is a lot like Zoro doing whatever he can for Luffy to be the king of the pirates, you know? So I think there's a lot of interesting elements to him. But yes, he's very annoying.
For sure.
He's very annoying as well.
For sure. No, yo, shout out to Trish. Treble, like you said, yeah, obviously very interesting character, especially presented within that backstory. But that's a great point, and I really appreciate the way that you worded that, because absolutely he without question is extremely quintessential in Doflamingo becoming the king as we know him of his family there. So in another medium at this point in time, we're about to have the live action adaptation, and we have Henrique coming in and saying, one question I guess I have is, what are his thoughts on the live action? Has he seen it? As meaning, obviously it's not out yet for like any trailers, and or will he? Depending on when this is recorded. Not sure if this is brought up in the last one. Anyways, can't wait to see another Fire collab. Now, I know that you presented your thoughts before, but for the people who have not seen your thoughts on that, and for Henrique, what are your thoughts on the from the live action, from what you've seen based on like the trailers and stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question, and very topical. I think it's encouraging. I think it's I'm encouraged by what I've seen. I think the thing with One Piece is okay. It's one thing to translate any given anime into live action. That's very difficult in and of itself. But One Piece is so tied to the manga and anime medium through the expressiveness, a lot of the paneling in the manga, a lot of the the wackiness and elasticity in the animations and some of the sakuga that's used. It is so stylized to the anime medium, anime and manga. It is one of the most difficult series out there to adapt into live action. But so I think naturally there are going to be some things that feel a little off just because they're not in the medium anymore, and it's weird to see real people doing them. Like, it may feel bizarre to see a live action Luffy using his powers, just because you're so used to a cartoon character doing them. But having said that, I'm really encouraged by a lot of what I've seen. I think a lot of the casting looks really good. The set design is really, really interesting in that I feel like it captures the spirit of the series, but it's also a little gritty. Gritty in a way that I wasn't expecting, but really like. The color palette is really interesting. It's very sort of a little rustic, but still tons of color. A lot of the character designs look great. I love how Mihawk looked.
Yes, one of the coolest casts, man.
He looks so
awesome.
Great. I liked how Buggy was a little horror movie for me in the first trailer. But in the second one, I liked him a lot, and so I'm pretty encouraged by that. Most of the crew look great. A lot of the lines I've heard feel very loyal to the spirit of the series. The music sounds awesome. Just the overall presentation and production values look great, and it seems to me like, given what I've seen, obviously it's very limited. It's just trailers and stuff. But it seems to me like they're capturing the spirit of the series. And I know from what I've heard, they're very in tune with the community, like the fandom, and hearing feedback and
for sure.
What fans want to see and what sort of things they need to do and not miss out on and all that sort of thing. So that and the fact that the cast and crew seem so passionate about One Piece, it feels like a love letter as much as it is an adaptation. That's very encouraging. Like, I think when you can feel that dedication and commitment and sort of earnest spirit in the production, it's always a good sign. So to me, the scenes are good. The signs are good. I'm not going to say that everything I've seen looks perfect and like nothing has felt a little awkward. But again, the translation from that is so hard to do, and I think given what we've seen, it's really really encouraging, and so I'm pretty optimistic. So yes, I'll definitely be watching it, and yeah, hopefully also next time we talk, we'll be talking about how great it was.
Facts, yeah, for sure. And while we were talking about that, it reminded me a lot about the conversation around One Piece back during like the 4Kids days, right? Where it's kind of like that again, where a lot of people maybe who aren't familiar with the series, they look at it and they're like, why does it look so weird? You know, like, it's the same thing with the series. The series does not look like a conventional anime or manga. It has a very unique style to it. So like the live action carries that to a T, where anyone who watches it is going to be like, ugh, like what in the world am I looking at? But that's the beauty of it, where once you give it a shot and you strap yourself in, you go in for the journey, that style becomes so ingrained in your heart where you can't see it any other way. It's so beautiful. It's something that just it represents the series so well, and I'm hoping that that's exactly how we feel about the live action when we finish this, not only on that end, but I would say to anyone out there who's feeling skeptical about it, you know, give the live action the same amount of time that you gave the series. Regardless of whether the series pulled you in at the very beginning with the very first chapter or episode, or if it took you until Arlong Park or Baratie to hook you in, give the live action the same amount of time, because that's the amount of time that we're going to need to get adjusted to the brand new voices behind our beloved characters, behind the new vibe that's going to be in the show, behind their version of our beloved story. And so just give them time. And by the time we reach the end with the final episode, we will be able to come to terms with how we feel about this season. Whether we feel about it in whatever light that we feel about it, it's going to be similar to the East Blue Saga from the anime and the manga. It'll be a pretty good litmus test on, okay, is this for me or is it not? Right? Like, is this going to be something that I'm gonna stick with for the long run, or is this just gonna be it with me in this series? And so hopefully, when we finish the live action, we'll look back on it and be like, yeah, I'm in here until they adapted all the way until where we are right now.
Yeah.
You know? Or we could just be like, no, they tried, but it is what it is. But it's looking great. It's looking great, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they're going to have in store, especially with the incredible dynamics between the characters, between the actors. They after watching all the interviews and just of course I'm very biased because I've been following this entire journey with the live action being produced, but the actors, they just care about it so much. Even Oda, his passion for this is just, I mean, oozing through everything, through all the interviews we see, where he's continuously talking about how we can't wait for us to experience this, how he understands, how he has the very same doubts that or he understands the doubts that we have, because he himself also had those same doubts, where he even states it in interviews where he was like, I originally never wanted a live action to happen until someone could do it justice, because he knows that live action adaptations up until this point of anime have not been taken seriously, because they're just not up to the quality that people are expecting from these television shows or high budget movies or anything. And he really wanted something to represent his story really well. And he said, if we're gonna do this, we're not green lighting it until I think it's all good. And he gave the green light. Ichiro Oda, the man whom this is his baby, this is his life, he gave the green light to this. And so if he gave the green light, we at the very least have to be like, man, if this brother gave the green light, we have to give it a shot. Because the creator himself was like, all right, I didn't want to do live action thing, but they pulled me in. And I'm so glad they did. So the passion that Oda has continued to showcase for this is reaffirming and exciting. And obviously there's been some from the individuals that attended the previews, and from our friends who have been gifted the opportunity to watch some of the episodes from live action. There's been a lot of glowing reviews for it, so I can't wait to experience it myself and deliver my thoughts. And I'm sure the same thing will be for AJ as well. And like you said, hopefully next time we'll come on here and talk about how awesome the live action was. Not just how awesome it is, but how we use the live action to get other people into One Piece, because that is ultimately what we want from this.
Yeah, exactly. Here's hoping.
Here's hoping, right? Like we'll see how that goes. But yeah, just a few more questions here. Brandon King comes in and asks, if you could get to talk to any Straw Hat and become their friend, which would it be? Who do you think would be the most fun to party/chat with?
Oh boy. Okay, I have two different answers. Well, actually, maybe not. I don't know. The first thing I thought of, the Straw Hat that would be fun to party and chat with the most would be, and I'll add, the caveat is Brooke will be involved, will be listening to him doing his music, but would actually to me be Zoro. I'd love to party with Zoro. Zoro sounds like hella fun, but a less loud, more sort of low-key sort of fun, which is sort of tends to be my thing sometimes. So I'd like to party with Zoro. But as for the one I want to be friends with the most, it's Usopp. Obviously,
answer.
like, all the Straw Hats are great, and you'd want to do all that with any of them. But if I had to pick one, I'd want to be friends with Usopp.
That's a
Yeah, we're
great
kind
answer.
of and I don't think it's a coincidence that to me he's the closest thing to the everyman in the Straw Hats. So
Hmm. I think Luffy for sure
yeah,
would be the one that I would love to party with. But in terms of a chat, man, I would love to pick Zoro's brain in regards to his ambitions and his desire to accomplish his dream. Because even though he doesn't talk much, whenever he does talk, it always hits. And because there's so many things that I want to achieve as well, I would love to have that conversation with somebody else whom I know has similar to Luffy, obviously, but Zoro would be able to articulate that stuff. Where Luffy
yeah,
just lives it, but Zoro to be able to ask him like, man, how do you go about your daily training regiment? What drives you to do that? Why this and I would love to pick his brain because he's been the representation of that within the series, and whenever you see that same representation, also put that to the side whenever it came to someone else, someone like a Luffy, where he even had to bow his head to the individual whom he's trying to surpass in order to attempt to help his friends. I would just love to have the opportunity to talk with Zoro because there's so much complexity there, and as someone who's really trying to achieve something, I would just love to pick his brain. He just seems like such a fascinating character to pick their brain and discuss stuff like that because I'm not sure if he's had the opportunity to speak to someone else about that type
yeah,
of stuff. I honestly do believe that's why he and Luffy got along so well at the beginning because he finally found somebody else that felt the same way he does, but lives it, where they don't even have to converse about it. He was just like he and I, we have that. It's the same thing with Luffy and Jaya, where he met Blackbeard, even though they didn't get along. He was like, he's cut from the same cloth I am. Like he he looked at him. The first two people he thought of was Ace and Shanks. He was like all of us we're cut from the same cloth. Like we have these big things we want to achieve that was the whole essence of Giant Skypiea. But the that there are these individuals, and when you meet them, you get it. And I would love to have a conversation with Zoro because of that. Like it would be so cool.
yeah. I love that.
He's-
That's very true because Zoro doesn't talk about himself that often, really. Not unless
Yeah.
he needs to for some reason. But a lot of what he does, we've seen his journey, we've seen the way in which he changed, and but a lot of that's been external because it's what's required
Right.
by the crew in any given moment. It's what's required, like he has to get Luffy in check or something. But he doesn't actually internalize a ton because the story hasn't really demanded it of him, and he's just not that kind of person. So that would be really cool. I love that answer because, yeah, I do really think he's one of the more complex characters in the series because of all the nuances associated with his journey. It's just that because of the way in which he interacts with the story and the world and their journey, he comes off simple, maybe to some people sometimes.
Right.
But he really isn't a simple person. He is in some ways. Like that duality we've been talking about.
Right.
He is in some ways,
Right.
and I love that. But there are some nuances and very subtle things that have been going on under the surface that would be really cool to hear about.
For sure. And on that same line of thought, Beef My Jeans, who comes in and says, regarding themes, do you think post time skip so far has stronger or weaker themes in general, as well when it comes to our conclusion? So I think what Beef My Jeans is trying to say is, how have you felt about the way that post time skip is handled themes, as well as the arc conclusions, and how they compare to pre-time skip so far for you.
Well, so we've had 3 arcs, 3 and a little bit of arcs. And like I said, Punk Hazard is one of the least theme-centric arcs in the series, in my opinion. But even having said that, it's not like there weren't arcs like that pre-time skip. Like, Whiskey Peak wasn't big on themes. Little Garden wasn't big on themes. Long Ring, Long Land. Like, there are a handful pre-time skip that weren't big on themes. So I don't think Punk Hazard is a change in style. And then if you look at Fishman Island, like I said, one of the most thematically powerful arcs in the whole series, along with Skypiea, like I said, one of the most theme-centric, top 2. And I think Dressrosa does everything.
100%.
And that it absolutely includes the themes. Like, it's so strong on the themes, too. So I can compare that to, like, Water 7 or Ennie's Lobby.
Yeah, exactly.
So, to me, there's no real shift at all in terms of how themes are tackled. Sometimes Oda changes it up, and themes aren't really the focus. Sometimes they're a huge focus. Sometimes he does a lot of everything, and that's been all 3 arcs. That was the same pre-time skip as the same post-time skip. So I don't see much of a change in style there, which I'm glad about. I liked that approach. It kept things fresh and, well, not skipping out on the themes. And it's the same now. So I really enjoy that, and I hope Oda continues to do that, and I think he will.
Krish Bora, continuing the post-time skip stuff, says, which post-time skip reveals or plot thread resolutions have been the best so far to you?
Okay. Oh, man. So this is one, I'll say like 2 or 3. One that I really loved was, we kind of alluded to it without saying it directly, but in Fishman Island, essentially the reveal that humans did nothing to Hody, right? He was just born this way. He just is just a byproduct, like I said, hardly a human. So I love that reveal because my reaction to it was like, huh? Like, it was really built up, and I went, huh, I kind of tilted my head at it, and then you slowly understand, and it all comes flooding through, like, this is who this guy is. He was never even, like, he never even had a chance to be a human being, really. Humans did nothing to him personally. He is just kind of a storm of negative emotions. Just so the way in which that sort of slowly dawns on the reader, the way in which it's presented, I think it was done super well. So that's one of my favorites. There's obviously the shock of Joker being Doflamingo, and that him being associated with law at all was new in Punk Hazard. That was just a huge, really enticing, cool reveal. But I think just the backstory as a whole, and the way it integrates, and the way you understand how Doflamingo came to be this way, and how Law came to be this way, and everything that had been hinted at, just the backstory in general, the reveal of their history. If I have to say one thing that's my favorite reveal, it's probably that. But there's so many. So, like, the ones I mentioned, the ones you mentioned, the Blackbeard stuff, the reveal of Kaido, Big Mom, like, there's so many little ones. Sabo. Yeah. Like, Sabo's probably top 3. That was crazy. So if I had to say 3, probably Doflamingo, backstory, Law, Corazon, Sabo, and the Hody, I guess, the apex of Hody, the reveal that led to the apex of Hody's character work.
Yeah, those are 3 really good ones. 3 really, really good ones. So to wrap up here, as we did last time, because Mist, you talked about your top 5 arcs earlier with like the Mount Rushmore stuff. So I'll go into the other part of his question. where he asks you for your favorite characters. Now, last time we had an update on your list. So, do you have a new update to your list that you can share with us today? Up to the end of Dressrosa.
Yes. Okay. So just like last time, you guys are getting the exclusive look because I'm currently in the middle of recording my Dressrosa video. I've recorded like a third of it or so. It's going to be a long one, and I haven't revealed my character rankings. So yeah, up to my top. What number do you want? do you want?
Let's go ahead and do top 15 like last time.
15.
We'll do 15.
Okay.
Yep.
Though, because they're relevant characters, I will say Kairos is 19 and Fujitora is 17. Okay,
Awesome.
but so 15 is Buggy, 14 Jinbei, 13 Vivi, 12 Corazon, 11 Ace, 10 Garp, 9 Shanks, 8 Nami, 7 Zoro, 6 Robin, and they had been like around 3, 4, 5, 6. Those characters I just said, they'd been that around there for ages, so that's a big shift. But yeah, Nami, Zoro, Robin, 8, 7, 6, 5 Law, 4 Usopp, 3 Luffy, 2 Whitebeard, and 1 Doflamingo.
Oh, Dofi, top 1!
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah,
Right.
I really didn't think that, like, that Whitebeard, Luffy, Usopp top 3, I'm like, that's so strong. Is anything gonna come close to it? And then Dressrosa happened, and I couldn't deny it. Dofi's right now my favorite character in One Piece.
I respect that, man. You know, when I finished that arc, I remember I was asked like who my favorite character was directly after Dressrosa, and Doflamingo was mine as well.
Nice.
At that point, and for so long, like I'd been switching, well, because Luffy's always been my number one, with a few others that might have taken it temporarily, but for sure for a little while there after Dressrosa, I was in the same boat where, man, Doflamingo's just him. Yeah. Like he's so good, bro. Like his it's just everything, right? Like everything from the pre-time skip, the build up to his character, from his introduction, everything he says holds so much weight. The Marineford stuff, and then you get the Punk Hazard stuff, and then the Dressrosa stuff. Even in post Dressrosa,
yeah.
Even after his defeat, he's still cooking. He's still cooking.
He's been fired as a chef, and he's still cooking.
I'm saying, bro. Like he's such a strong character. But no, yeah, that is definitely an AJ top 5 right there. We love to see it, and I look forward to the next time we get together to see any more changes that come onto the list. But man, that most certainly was your favorite characters. And I thank you for highlighting Fujitora and Kairos there too. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really glad they made it on there too. Oh, and sorry, Sabo.
Yeah.
Let me just say that Sabo made it to 22, so he had never been even in honorable mentions, but because of Dressrosa, he jumped up.
We love to see it. We love to see it. So, I gotta thank you, man. We've been recording here for 3 hours, and I can't believe that because it felt like it went by in a flash. That's why I asked you. I was like, dude, do you still have time? I couldn't believe it. I looked up. I saw the time it was. I was like, man, holy flagnards. But that's what happens whenever we're having fun talking about the greatness. I appreciate you as always for your time, your energy, and the continuous awesome sauce you continue to give us, not only just in regards to the One Piece greatness, but the other stuff that we've talked about here as well. And so, thank you so much for being here, and let the good people know your Twitch schedule, so they can go follow you over there, twitch.tv/Alexander. So yeah, man, cook and let the good people know not only where they can find you, but what you're currently experiencing over there, man.
And thank you again for having me. I totally agree. It's been so much fun. So yeah, on my YouTube channel, firstly, I do these One Piece reviews, which I've been talking about, which are tend to be hours long for each arc, and they'll continue to be, I imagine. The Dressrosa one's going to be chunky. So that's over on my main YouTube channel. I also do sort of thematic character analysis stuff there. Some rankings I've been doing as well lately. I just put out a Hunter x Hunter one, so if you want to follow me over there or check out the videos there. And then on Twitch, so yeah, it's twitch.tv/Alexander. I'm currently finishing off the Yakuza Yakuza Kiwami 2, like I mentioned. I'll be starting 3 and then getting into a bit of a game called Ghost Trick, which I've heard good things about, before starting the Metal Gear series. And those will be on Mondays. So those are Mondays, Monday mornings into the late afternoons. Mondays are gaming days on Twitch. And then every Wednesday, we do Naruto reads, which are the ones we were talking about as well. Whenever I'm done that, which I think will still take a while, but because I'm not even halfway done, but whenever I'm done that, those will be replaced with Bleach. So you can follow me if you're interested in watching me read through every single chapter of those. And then every Sunday, and some Fridays, tends to be like 2 out of every 3 Fridays, we read One Piece. So the bulk of what we talked about today and my journey through that will continue Fridays and Sundays until I catch up, and then, I mean, it's still going to continue, but it'll just be a bit different. But until then, yeah, we read a chunk of chapters every stream, and it's tons of fun, lots of insight. It's very collaborative, and yeah, it's a good time. So you can check those out if you're interested in any of that.
Absolutely, and definitely do so, because this man cooks, whether it be on YouTube and or on Twitch, man. And so, once again, much appreciated. Nothing but love for you, man. And next time that we get together, like I said, it might be even longer than this one. And there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm very, very excited. So there's going to be a lot of greatness there. But for sure, definitely go follow him. He's definitely cooking at the highest level, as well as experiencing other cooks at the highest level. So shout out to my boy, man, and nothing but the absolute best to each and every single one of you that are listening to this. Thank you so much for being here. If you have watched this movie length discussion, and if you guys gain as much out of this as we had recording it, then nothing but the absolute love and best to each and every single one of you. So I will see all of you next time. Have an awesome sauce of a day, and please let us know what you would like to see out of the next collaboration, because undoubtedly we will be having another one here soon down the line. So thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a good one. And for all of the greatness, man, please go follow this man over on Twitch, because y'all know what's coming in that One Piece greatness. So don't miss his reactions to it. Y'all have a good one. Take care.